Chapter 452. The Xinxiang Stadium in Fulua was brightly lit and packed with people. It had the unique atmosphere of a crowded and passionate place. The competition will start with a double elimination format. There will be one round every day. Whoever loses 2 rounds will go home until the top 16 are left. Leader Zhong Ningtao explained the situation as he led Lu Qing, Peng Liyun, and the rest to their predetermined seats. It's almost the same as the provincial youth tournament last year. Lu Qing nodded slightly. He observed the stadium as they walked and tried to be a good husband. Xinxiang was deeply influenced by the Buddhist culture. Golden statues of wisdom kings and arhats were placed around the venue. Some of them looked evil, some of them looked solemn, some of them looked bitter, and some of them had lowered eyebrows. Looking at them, one would inexplicably feel a sense of anxiety and trepidation. Under the suppression of these Buddha statues were 3 wide arenas in the shape of the Chinese character, Tri. There were many swastikas engraved around the arenas, giving off a sense of tranquility, illusion, and detachment. One inside and one outside. The combination of these 2 feelings seemed to be able to affect the emotions of the fighters in the arena. The work of a master. And Chaoyang was listening to music with his headphones on, but he controlled his voice so that it was no different from normal. Peng Liyun returned from his daydream. He glanced over and laughed softly. This is the home field advantage. Those Buddha statues and those swastikas were probably the work of the eminent monks of Southern Buddhism. They were the enhanced version of the forwarding formula that Lu Qing wrote for Wang Su. They were used to disrupt the minds and spirits of non-Theravada monks and create the most advantageous environment for themselves. Yeah. Renli took 2 steps forward and took a picture of the Buddha statues and the swastikas. She walked back to Zhong Ningtao, who looked like he was facing a formidable enemy. She said innocently, "Leader, I'm not blind. I can't see you guys. It's just a few steps. I won't get lost. It's always better to be safe than sorry." Zhong Ningtao replied earnestly. He felt exhausted from the past few days. Beside him, Lu Qing was sending the picture he just took to Yan Zhika and discussing the home field advantage with her. Ahem. Zhong Ningtao cleared his throat. We're about to enter the arena. Everyone, keep your spirits up. Oh right, the contestants who can enter this competition are mostly equivalent to rank 6 martial artists. All of you, be careful. Don't be too careless. These are all geniuses from their countries, or former geniuses. Okay. Lu Qing nodded solemnly, indicating that he understood. Theoretically speaking, he was only at the level of a top-notch rank 6. He had yet to truly step into the door of the inhuman stage and undergo a transformation. Therefore, when facing these strange contestants who did not know much about Kung Fu, they could not afford to be careless. Just as Peng Liyun was about to say something, the broadcast sounded. It was repeated in Xinxiang and English. It's our turn. Zhong Ningtao called out in a hurry. He straightened his back and stood in front of the team. Seeing this, Chaoyang took off his earphones and hung them around his neck. Peng Liyun's gaze became more focused. Renli and Lu Qing silently switched their phones to silent mode and stuffed them into their pockets. After more than 10 seconds, the impassioned melody of the national anthem rose. Lu Qing and the rest, who were inexplicably excited, walked out of the passageway unhurriedly under Zhong Ningtao's lead. They entered the arena and headed for the VIP seats. Not long after he appeared in front of everyone, he suddenly felt a prickling sensation on his skin. Following the source of the prickling sensation, he saw a burly man with exaggerated muscles in the Japanese delegation. He was wearing a traditional samurai outfit and was looking at him with a deep gaze. Bam! Their gazes seemed to meet. Light gathered in Muko Yamashita's eyes, forming a white wave. It was so bright that Lu Qing felt as though he was looking at a strong light. He narrowed his eyes slightly and his pupils suddenly darkened. It was as though there was a boundless starry sky in his eyes. The scarlet sun and sparkling stars swallowed all the external light as it rotated slowly. At the same time, Renli's heart skipped a beat. She followed Lu Cheng's gaze and happened to see a beautiful girl in an elegant kimono with exquisite makeup. Her round face was cute, her eyes were like mirrors, and her aura was quiet and gentle. It was as though she was just an illusion. The current successor of Shinjai's sect, Kaori Karasawa. Whoosh! A strong wind suddenly blew in the arena, blowing chaotically. No one knew where it came from and where it went. And Chaoyang also found inspiration and reacted as though he was reminded of the scenery. Instinctively, he turned his head and made eye contact with a skinny, yellow-robed monk in red robes. He felt his disgust and abandonment towards everything in the world. All illusions should be broken free from them. Water gushed out from his mind, containing a sense of vitality. It washed away and Chaoyang's melancholy and despair. What a powerful mental infection. And Chaoyang took a deep breath, retracted his gaze and looked at the other mighty ones. Beside him, Peng Liyun saw Vagar at first glance. He saw his cold face, his well-ironed blue general uniform and the dancing electric snakes in his eyes. Crackle. A strange sound was heard in midair. The lights in the Xinxiang Stadium dimmed for a moment before returning to their former glory. Lu Qing shifted his gaze away from Muko Yamashita. His footsteps swept past Kaori Karasawa, Waku, and Vagar without the slightest hesitation. Feeling their unique aura, he relied on the secret assistance of the army formula and fighting formula to not be at a disadvantage. Finally, his gaze landed on the Nanjing delegation. He saw the tanned Bantam sitting with his arms crossed. He was looking at the four of them coldly, like a wild beast staring at its prey. The national anthem stopped. Lu Cheng and the rest returned to their seats and sat down, no longer looking around. Vagar, Muko Yamashita, and the rest also retracted their gazes. I really don't know what the Japanese Xinxiang are thinking, giving us 4 wild cards, said Chaoyang softly as he ran his fingers through his half-length hair. Even with 4 countries combined, there would only be 5 Inhumans below the age of 24. Hearing this, Zhong Ningtao made a self-deprecating joke. Maybe they didn't expect us to be so rude. Yeah. Renli nodded slowly, as though she had taken his joke for the truth. She turned to Peng Liyun and the rest and asked curiously, "Why are you guys here?" "I've been at the Inhuman stage for a while now and haven't had any actual combat experience. My hands are itching. Since there's such a good opportunity, I decided to come," replied Peng Liyun with a smile. "Aren't there so many Inhuman seniors in the Shangqing sect?" asked Lu Qing in surprise. "Why wouldn't there be any actual combat experience?" The corners of Peng Liyun's mouth curled up as he laughed. "You also said that I'm a senior. Challenging a senior for no reason will lead to a scolding. My senior brothers and sisters of the same generation as me rarely returned to the sect after I advanced. Seems like you're a demon in the Shangqing sect too." Lu Cheng was enlightened and mocked him in his mind. After their exchange, Renli took the initiative to speak. She smiled elegantly and said, "I've just completed my metamorphosis and want to use actual combat to get used to the Inhuman stage. That's why I signed up. I was sent here by my master to gain more experience so as to strengthen my foundation for the Inhuman stage in a year's time," replied Chaoyang. What about you?" Renli looked at Lu Cheng. Peng Liyun and Chaoyang were also waiting for his answer with interest. Now that everyone was more familiar with each other, Lu Cheng didn't go through the motions like he did at the airport. After thinking for a while, he nodded sincerely and said, "Need money." The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Lu Cheng felt that Peng Liyun and the rest were looking at him strangely, as though they were looking at something unbelievable. Just as he was about to speak, the lot drawing ceremony started and a bunch of formalities went through. Taking out his phone secretly, Lu Cheng secretly took a photo and sent it to Jika. He also described to her how he felt when he made eye contact with Muko Yamashita and the rest. "You guys look pretty impressive," replied Jika with a smile. Jika sent an emoji with its hand covering its mouth and said, "I thought it was a bit strange when I saw that the organizing committee called you guys Team Stuck Abroad. Today, I browsed the forum and saw Unparalleled Dragon King's explanation. Then I figured it out." You guys are not team stuck abroad, but team stuck abroad. Especially you, the big pervert. Towards the end of her sentence, she seemed to have thought of something. Her pretty face turned red and her eyes seemed to be both angry and happy. Lu Qing felt something and calmed down. Snickering expression, he replied, I don't agree with what others say, except for little fairy. While chatting, Unparalleled Dragon King came to him and said with anticipation, Little tiger, I found a few resources but they only have a fixed broadcast of one arena. We'll be depending on you later. Remember to take a photo for the live broadcast. He implored with an expression of frustration. Sure, but I have other things to do. If it doesn't clash, it's fine. Lu Qing was grateful to Unparalleled Dragon King for providing the video of the competition. He didn't reject him but gave him a heads up. If it really didn't work out, he could ask Peng Liyun or An Chaoyang for help. Not long after, the lot drawing ceremony officially started. There was only one way to avoid this double elimination round, and that was to not meet each other from the same country. First, Peng Liyun was picked and would face a boxer from Xinjiang. Then, An Chaoyang would face off against a mighty one from Miluo. After another minute, Ren Li's name was called. Her opponent was a monk from Xinjiang, Fuoku. Lu Qing waited patiently. When it was nearing the end, he finally heard his name, China, Lu Qing. He adjusted his sitting position and saw that the guest had drawn his opponent, Japan, Ichii Sakata. Ichii Sakata? Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully. He recalled the information about this samurai in his mind. This was one of the 5 Inhumans that Zhong Mingtao had specially reminded of. He was also a disciple of the extreme Hadu sect and a fellow disciple of Mukko Yamashita. He used to be on par with Mukko Yamashita and had supernatural abilities. He was gradually surpassed by Mukko Yamashita and was about to turn 24. He was still stuck at a bottleneck and had no hope of advancing. I've been imitating Mukko Yamashita for the past few days and ended up against someone from the extreme Hadu sect. What a coincidence. Over at the Japanese representative team, Ichii Sakata, whose hair was dyed blonde, looked at the matchup with a solemn expression. He could almost imagine the headlines about him that would appear soon. Can the genius of the past return to glory? Chapter 453. After the drawing of lots, the 5 representatives returned to their respective changing rooms to prepare for the first round of double elimination. I'm so angry. Qing, your match will be broadcasted, but I have to go to class at that time. Yenjika sent a message with a, woof, I'm going to cry, emoji. Lu Qing sat on the bench in the changing room with his head down. He typed on his phone and comforted his wife with a, patting head, emoji. It's nothing. Just replay it later. I'll definitely win anyway. Yo, Qing, you're getting better at bragging. Yenjika said, Ichii Sakata has supernatural powers and can release waves. He's like a mini Mukko Yamashita. He's definitely in the top 10 below the Inhuman stage. Then no one would dare to say they're the best below the Inhuman stage. Ku, do you have so little confidence in me? Lu Qing replied with a, hands on hips expression. Yenjika replied with a blank expression, I know my brother Qing can transform at any time if he wants to. But, isn't this accumulating good karma for you? Quick, apologize for not understanding your sister's good intentions. I'm sorry. Lu Qing couldn't hide his smile. Actually, I was just bragging just now. He said with a sigh while covering his face. Pfft. Yenjika almost spat out the milk in her mouth. She calmed down and replied with an emoji, are you trying to make me laugh to death so you can inherit my Aunt Flower? Ji Mingyu looked at her daughter helplessly. Ku, I've taught you not to play with your phone when you're eating. You're getting out of hand. You're drinking milk and typing at the same time. Mom, I didn't have a phone to play with when I was young. Yenjika quickly sat up and pointed out the problem. Ji Mingyu was momentarily speechless. After a few seconds of silence, she said, get the point, yes. Yenjika ate quickly and gracefully, finishing her breakfast in a few bites. She wiped her mouth with a napkin, picked up her phone and unlocked it. Lu Qing replied with a silly smile, I admit that I'm stronger than Ichii Sakata, and I have that much confidence in myself. But since I haven't completed my transformation, the gap can't be too big. He still has a chance of winning, so I have to be cautious and give it my all. This concerns the cost of the plane ticket to see my fairy. It's good that you know. Yenjika's mood was lifted, and the dimples on her cheeks were sweet and soft. How should I cheer you on later? I won't say anything that's too mushy. Kiss me. Cool, I feel like I'm back in the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. Lu Qing replied with a snickering emoji. Suddenly, he felt a little sentimental and sighed. It was impossible for Ku to rush to the scene to cheer for him, chat with him on QQ, and cheer for him from afar. The only difference was that they were just friends at that time. Their feelings grew bit by bit as they progressed. But now, they had made a lifelong commitment to each other, and they didn't want their feelings to fade. Yeah. Yenjika pursed her lips and suddenly became quiet. She paused for a moment and gently typed a few words. Cheng, I miss you. Looking at her own missed message, she paused for a few seconds before deleting it word by word. She was afraid that it would affect her husband's mood during the competition. Taking a deep breath, she replied with a blushing face. That's different. You earned money for yourself, but now you're here to see me, that's true. Lu Qing suddenly felt a little more motivated. After chatting for a while, Yenjika began to tie up her hair, put on her glasses, packed her bag and prepared to leave the house. Lu Qing lifted his head and saw Peng Lian leaning against the wall opposite him. His eyes were unfocused, and no one knew what he was thinking about. And Chaoyang's body moved slightly, and his head nodded slightly. He was quietly intoxicated by the melody in his headphones. Renli was holding her phone in her hand, playing a video of her opponent that she had found. Her eyes, however, were looking at the floor, admiring the floor tiles with unique and exotic patterns. A bunch of salted fish. Lu Qing thought of this inexplicable phrase. He shook his head helplessly and flipped through the information on Ichii Sakata stored in his phone. At this moment, he heard 2 crisp claps. Zhong Ningtao clapped his hands, waking up the salted fish in front of him and attracting their attention. He cleared his throat and said, This is the semi-finals of the national team. We've prepared uniform martial arts suits for all of you. Hurry up and change. There are only 15 minutes before the official start. You can stay in the locker room or go to the stands. Pay attention to the broadcast announcement and wait around the corresponding arena 1 round before the start. Renli, don't nod blindly. You have to follow me. Ah. Renli looked innocent. It's just a martial arts stadium. How can I not find an arena? Lu Qing held back his laughter and took the martial arts suit from the leader. There were 2 sets in total. They were the same design but different colors. They were to distinguish between the matches of the same country after the start of the top 16. One of them was plain white with a vertical red stripe from the shoulder to the waist. It looked like a ribbon. It was very cool. The other was red with golden stars. It was flamboyant. Lu Qing chose the first set. He changed in the bathroom and put on the training shoes that Wu Qinggui's company had made for him. They were white and eye-catching, with a unique design. Walking out of the bathroom, he saw Peng Liyun and Chaoyang had made the same choice as him. Renli preferred the red one. As for the martial arts shoes on her feet, they were all different. Shall we go to the stands? Asked Lu Qing, who was going to do a live broadcast with words and pictures. Sure. Renli rushed to answer, and then looked at the leader weakly. Let's all go. It's better to watch from the outside. Peng Liyun looked at Zhong Mingtao with a smile. And Chaoyang nodded in agreement. Okay. Zhong Mingtao turned around and pushed open the door of the locker room. He then returned to Renli's side, not daring to be careless. The organizing committee had set aside several times the number of seats for the contestants to isolate them from the audience. This was to prevent any violent conflicts. Lu Cheng and the others chose a place far away from the other representatives. Some were watching the opponents' videos, while others were contemplating their fighting strategies. Those who were prepared began to take pictures and send them to Yen Zhika and Unparalleled Dragon King. At this time, a live broadcast post had appeared in the Longhu Club forum. Unparalleled Dragon King posted Lu Cheng's picture and the accompanying commentary. Thank you to the reporter Little Tiger for his report. If there are any more important matches that are not to be broadcast, he will give us a text broadcast. Applause required. Clap clap clap. Eternal Nightfall Yen Shaoling, who rarely came here, clapped first and sent a secretly observing emoji. Brahman said enthusiastically, Little Tiger, have you seen my idol? Yes. Lu Cheng glanced sideways at Peng Liyun and caught a glimpse of himself in his unfocused eyes. Really? Quick, take a picture, and I won't make fun of you anymore. Brahman said excitedly. I want to see Renli. Okamoto's fan said with a drooling emoji. Yes, take a picture of Peng Liyun and Chaoyang too. Unparalleled Dragon King added with great interest. This is a bit difficult. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. Looking around, he came up with a plan and said to Peng Liyun and the others, let's take a picture together. Okay. And Chaoyang and the others agreed without hesitation. Lu Cheng smiled and handed the phone to Zhong Mingtao. Leader, help us take a picture. Huh, a souvenir? Don't worry, with your qualifications and progress, there will be plenty of opportunities to fight side by side in the future. Zhong Mingtao said with a smile. He took a few steps back and adjusted his pose like a professional. Click, click, click. After a few flashes, he returned the phone to Lu Cheng. Take a look and see what you think. We'll do it again if it doesn't work out. Not bad, much better than me taking it myself. Lu Cheng chuckled and glanced at the photo effect. He realized that he, Peng Liyun, and Chaoyang were all aliens who stiffened when they were photographed. Renli, on the other hand, had a gentle smile that hinted at heroism and was extremely photogenic. He first sent the picture to Ku, and when she laughed at him, he shared it with the other protagonists. Finally, he put it in the live post. Hey, did you rush in front of them to take the picture? Unparalleled Dragon King and the other onlookers realized something was wrong. Careless. Lu Cheng covered his face and said with a funny face, yeah, that's how professional I am. I admire you, Little Tiger, patting shoulder. Wonton Seller, praised. Yen Shaoling said with a starry-eyed expression, go on, Little Tiger. I can call you brother, father, and grandpa. As your relative, my seniority will be lowered sooner or later. Lu Cheng said with disdain. Brahman said with a rolling on the ground expression, I envy you. I envy you so much. Lu Cheng didn't say anything else. He spent most of his energy watching the competition and sharing it with Yen Zhika. He only took pictures and commentated when there was a lack of live broadcasts. Occasionally, he would exchange views with Peng Liyun, Renli, and Chaoyang to summarize their judgments. This made Unparalleled Dragon King exclaim that Little Tiger looked so professional that he could be a commentator. Sometimes, his judgment was even better. I'm not fighting alone. Lu Cheng replied. During this process, Peng Liyun and Renli fought one after another. Under the circumstances where their opponents weren't at the peak of sixth pin, they won without shedding a drop of blood. However, the fierceness of Xinjiang's boxing left a deep impression on Lu Cheng and the others. Miluo and Southern Zhang's boxing were similar, but the former was more aggressive and better at using their legs. The latter was more like an assassin style, vicious and vicious. Not long after, Chaoyang took the stage. Under the circumstances where he didn't have much of an advantage, he fought for more than 10 minutes and finally defeated his strong opponent from Southern Zhang. He fully experienced the cruelty of Zahi boxing. The first round of double elimination matches was coming to an end. Lu Qing said he had something to attend to in the forum, stood up, and walked to the central arena. His match was about to begin, and there was a live broadcast. In the Japanese representatives area, Ichii Sakata took a deep breath and stood up slowly with a solemn expression. Kori Karasawa and Muko Yamashita, who had finished their matches, also looked over. "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid," the Japanese team leader solemnly said to Ichii Sakata. "Yes." Ichii Sakata bowed deeply and turned to walk to the arena. "P.S. My trip is over and I'm returning today. The second update is at midnight. If I don't update on time, it means my flight was delayed and I have to take a break. I'll start updating tomorrow. PS2, I've been updating on time for the past few days. Even I'm scared of it." Chapter 454. How infuriating. Little Tiger actually dropped the ball at such a crucial moment. Banging the table expression, commented Brahman in the Longhu Club forum. Unparalleled Dragon King replied with a smiley face expression, "Luckily we have resources for this match. Why do you guys think Little Tiger has something to do in today's most important match?" Rubbing his chin expression, said Invincible Punch. "Who knows? Maybe he made an appointment? The match arrangement is only released after the lots are drawn," laughing evilly expression, said Okamoto's fan. "Xinjiang's red light district is very famous." "Nonsense. Little Tiger went with his girlfriend. Can't he have something to do at the last minute?" Wonton Seller stood up to uphold justice. Just as everyone was discussing and speculating, Unparalleled Dragon King reminded them, "It's almost time. Ichii Sakata has both supernatural abilities and realms. For Lu Qing, he's a rare opponent below the inhuman stage." Everyone quickly shifted their attention back to the match. When Lu Qing was about to reach the arena, he suddenly heard a special notification from his phone. Picking it up, it was a 2-second voice message from Yen Jika. He clicked on the play button and put it next to his ear. He heard a soft, pop sound. "It's really a kiss." Lu Qing was stunned at first, but soon burst into laughter. He replied with a kissing emoji, handed his phone and wallet to the competition supervisor, and walked up the stairs. Step by step, he settled down his joy, stirred up his blood, and trembled slightly. It was just right. Standing in the middle of the arena, he stood with his feet slightly apart. Gazing into the distance, he watched as his opponent approached quickly. Ichii Sakata, with his blonde hair, seemed to have sensed something. His footsteps slowed down, and in the end, it was as if he was facing a gale or breaking through the waves. It was heavy and difficult. His back was straight, without the slightest bend. His face was brimming with fanaticism, like a soldier about to launch a pig strike or kamikaze attack. 1 step, 2 steps. Ichii Sakata stepped into the arena and stood at the predetermined position, facing Lu Qing from a dozen meters away. As expected of a Japanese samurai who emphasizes willpower and spirit, Lu Qing dispersed the army formula in his mind and retracted his released aura, turning it into a towering, sacred mountain in the blizzard. He had just tested his opponent a little, using the terrifying aura of the army formula that he had mastered over the past 2 months to suppress Ichii Sakata from afar. He wanted to disturb his mind and destroy his will to test his strength, but it was to no effect. Over the past 1 to 2,000 years, Japan had been deeply influenced by China. This could be seen from various aspects of society, including martial arts. However, under the influence of Japan's characteristics and ethnic habits, they developed different things. For a country that often suffered from earthquakes and typhoons and was short on resources, life was short and easy to lose. It was better to pursue the brilliant blooming of cherry blossoms. Therefore, they paid more attention to the spirit and will in martial arts. After the initial tempering of the physical body, they were not like the Hua nation, where the will controlled the spirit and the spirit controlled the body and gradually became one. Instead, they directly used strong and extreme will to create corresponding changes and produce unique waves. Then, they used this to stimulate the body and burst out with terrifying power and exaggerated speed. Among them, the Limit Hadis sect was a classic example. Lu Qing controlled his body with willpower and spirit, and through the bridge of visualization, he wriggled his muscles, fascias, and organs to produce unique waves to complete the cultivation of force and create certain effects. The Limit Hadis sect used extreme willpower, such as anger or killing intent, to naturally change the body and produce corresponding waves. Then, the waves could be used to stimulate the body or attack the enemy. In other words, they hadn't reached the stage of force concentration. When the waves turned into the body's instincts and truly mastered the wave, they would be considered to be at the inhuman stage. Before reaching this stage, Japanese samurai tended to age prematurely due to their crazy training methods that didn't care about their bodies. Moreover, if their spirit broke down, their strength would plummet. As for the Dan stage martial artists of China, even if their willpower was worn down and they were no longer their original selves, they wouldn't regress like a cliff. This was because at that stage, they were already balanced in all aspects. Their material foundation wouldn't suddenly collapse. At most, they would stagnate or experience a slight drop in strength. All sorts of thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He saw Ichii Sakata bowing to him with a solemn expression. He returned the greeting with his hands cupped together. At this moment, the referee raised his right hand and announced in English, "Begin." In an international competition, the language barrier meant that conversation time lost its stage. If Lu Qing hadn't been watching the competition for a long time and was mentally prepared, he might have been at a disadvantage. "Begin." Just as the referee finished speaking, a faint white glow appeared on Ichii Sakata's body. A deep tiger's roar reverberated in the air. With his palms facing each other, he placed them at his waist. As his body swayed, he pushed his shoulders forward and extended his arms, setting up the cannon barrel. Hum. His palms opened as though they were the maw of a real dragon. He spat out a ball of white light at Lu Qing. Extreme had his sect, Dragon Roar had a punch. At the same time, Lu Qing took a step forward, arched his body forward, and lowered his arms. With a hook and a shake, he sent out a cluster of drifting white cold flames and a brutal fireball at his opponent. Burning ice and fire. Boom! Red flames and white light shone at the same time, neutralizing each other and stirring up a gust of wind. Ichii Sakata seemed to have been prepared. The moment he unleashed the Dragon Roar had a punch, a fanatical look appeared on his face. He stomped on the ground and leaped a dozen meters into the air, landing in front of Lu Qing in an instant. Extending his right hand, he turned it into a palm knife. Using the momentum of his fall, he viciously chopped at his opponent's neck, leaving behind a trail of faint white light. Extreme had his sect, Tiger Electric Slash. Lu Qing didn't panic. Placing his feet together, he swung his shoulders and raised his right fist to meet his opponent's chop. Bam! Striking the edge of the palm, Ichii Sakata's body trembled slightly. He swung his arm back slightly, then swiftly turned soft and coiled around Lu Cheng's wrist like a python. Flicking his waist and back, he whipped out his left leg in mid-air, leaving a trail of white light that went from bottom to top. It was an exceptionally ferocious attack. Extreme had his sect, Razor, paired with soft throw. One kick and one coil, leaving the opponent distracted. This martial art included not only striking techniques, but also throwing techniques. Ignoring Ichii Sakata's grab, Lu Qing adjusted his muscles, fascia, and organs in a flash, visualizing streaks of cold, crystal clear, but lonely and dark. Ice Spirit Holy Light Portrait. After this period of hard training, he had already made some progress and could barely visualize the frost force to the ice spirit force. Bam! The cold wave condensed into a ray of light that shot out from Lu Cheng's waist along with his fist. Bam! A fist shrouded in cold mist blocked Ichii Sakata's razor, while Ichii Sakata's right hand had already wrapped around Lu Cheng's wrist. However, the spot he touched was slippery ice, and he couldn't exert force on it. Ice Sect, 15th move, Ice Armor. Just as Ichii Sakata quickly adjusted, stimulating his body with feverish Hadu in an attempt to break through the layer of ice, he suddenly felt an indescribable chill seeping into his left leg where Lu Cheng's fist collided. He lost all feeling in his leg, and some white frost formed on his trousers. His lips turned blue. Ignoring the danger, he used the stimulation to forcefully twist his waist and kick again, using offense as defense. Bam! Ichii Sakata's right leg swept horizontally, continuing the razor stance from before. Extreme had his sect, whirlwind kick. Lu Cheng sensed it. As Ichii Sakata twisted his waist, he withdrew his chi and blood and squatted down, perfectly avoiding the attack. Bam! The Dan force in his body surged. Stretching his body, his arms expanded, and his right palm shot upwards like a cannon. Bam! White ripples flashed across Ichii Sakata's body, and his right leg strangely stopped moving. Straightening his leg, he chopped downwards like a battle axe. Bam! Fist and leg collided at high speed, momentarily freezing in midair. The exaggerated muscles and shocking lines were clearly visible. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Cheng took 3 steps back, while Ichii Sakata flew backwards without any leverage. Kacha! Lu Cheng exerted force on his feet, shifting his center of gravity, and pounced forward swiftly, like a ferocious beast that had locked onto its prey. In his mind, he visualized Ice Spirit Holy Light, which was boundless darkness without a trace of heat, and instantly transformed it into dense thunderclouds. Ice Spirit Force's version of Severe Warning. Ichii Sakata had just landed when he saw his opponent pouncing at him. Not daring to be careless, he let out a low growl and swung his right fist. As his fist moved forward, his body rapidly emitted a thick white light. The light rose into the shape of a dragon and a tiger. Like a flame, it instantly ignited Ichii Sakata, turning him into a huge Hadu, which struck towards Lu Cheng amidst the roars of dragons and tigers. Ultimate Hadu's sex killer move, Roaring Dragon and Tiger Mighty Punch. This was originally the ultimate move of a samurai who had truly mastered Hadu, but Ichii Sakata was able to use it at his current level by relying on his supernatural ability. Bam! Lu Cheng's crystal-frosted fist struck the huge white light. His opponent's strength was terrifying and domineering, coupled with the burning flames and the violent explosion. He couldn't help but take a few steps back, leaving a footprint and a crack in his body. After a few steps, he finally calmed down, but his right arm was still trembling uncontrollably. Ichii Sakata didn't pursue. He stood rooted to the ground, allowing the white light to dissipate bit by bit, revealing his body. Shivering, his eyes lost focus and his consciousness blurred. His dyed yellow hair was covered in ice shards. At this moment, Lu Cheng raised his hand and formed a seal, outlining an ancient character in his mind. "All right," he said in a low voice, his body leaving afterimages as he sprinted towards his opponent. In the Japanese delegation, Muko Yamashita's pupils shrank. P.S. Damn it, I'm stuck. I was supposed to write 6,004 hours this afternoon, but I only managed to write 3,000. There will be a second update at 12. I'll start making up for it tomorrow. Chapter 455. He was surrounded by darkness. There was no light, no warmth, and even the concept of cold was lacking, let alone sound and color. This was where Ichii Sakata wandered aimlessly. It was only when he began to struggle in his heart and was alerted by his own will and spirit that he was jolted awake. He felt the bone-chilling cold, a cold that dulled his thoughts and made him numb. Not good. Ichii Sakata's heart suddenly felt a sense of danger. He finally saw the light in front of him, and saw an opponent that appeared in a flash. Am I going to lose the match and lose all my honor and expectations? No. Struggling, Ichii Sakata tightened his thighs and pulled out his right leg, whipping up a trail of white light that resembled a meteor from the bottom to the top. His kick stimulated the corresponding parts of his body with undulation. The ferocious force caused his body to be deflected. He took advantage of the momentum and sent his left leg flying. Alternating between his legs, he created a bright white whirlwind. Bam bam bam. Crisp sounds rang out continuously, almost converging into a single sound. The white undulation dispersed, opening a path for the whirlwind kick. At the critical moment, Ichii Sakata unleashed an astounding force. Lu Cheng had just closed in when he was met with this ferocious counterattack. He lowered his center of gravity and stopped abruptly. In his mind, he visualized a heavy scorching sun and the god of fire riding a red dragon. His waist and abdominal muscles bulged and his fascias on both sides pulled together. With a burst of his shoulders, he punched forward with his right fist. Bam! In the process of passing through the airflow, his fist seemed to be ignited by a layer of invisible flames that flickered unsteadily. Boom! His fist hit the air and the scarlet flames exploded, spreading forward and setting off a terrifying wave of fire. Amidst the loud boom, the layers of white light were swallowed up by the crimson sea of fire, while Ichii Sakata's feet kicked the sea of fire away, clearing the area around him. Bam! Lu Cheng's arm joints flexed and his fascia stretched. He punched his opponent's foot for the second time, stopping his chain of kicks. The force rebounded and his right arm swung. Lu Cheng's chi and blood retracted and fluctuated. His left arm swelled and flung out, transforming into a large spear that pointed at Ichii Sakata's body. Bam! Ichii Sakata's right arm glowed and swelled to twice its original size. He slashed down vertically, hitting his opponent's fist in time. Then, as his body swayed backwards, his hand blade lowered and dragged, cutting into his opponent's fascias. However, Lu Cheng withdrew his fist as soon as it made contact. Borrowing strength, he returned it to his lower abdomen and kicked out with his right foot. Bam! Bam bam bam! After gaining the upper hand in one move, he immediately suppressed his opponent. 24 blizzard strikes, combined with the seemingly inexhaustible force concentration, launched a series of frenzied attacks. The more he fought, the fiercer and stronger he became. Ichii Sakata couldn't break free from the extreme Hadis sect karate moves even after using several extreme Hadis sect karate moves. He was forced to use the Hada to stimulate his body, sometimes retreating and struggling to hold on. His heart skipped a beat. What he was feeling wasn't an illusion. There really was a cold wind blowing around him. Snowflakes fell and melted in an instant. He's about to transform. Peng Liyun murmured thoughtfully, no longer in a daze. He clutched his phone with one hand and stuffed the other in his pocket. In the past, Lu Cheng's supernatural ability was his supernatural ability, and the Dan stage explosion was the Dan stage explosion. There was a clear distinction between the two, and there was an obvious gap between them. But now, with his continuous force concentration, the force of frost was gradually revealing itself. It was almost becoming an instinct. What did this mean? It meant that his root pulp was showing signs of internal transformation. He was about to push open the door to the inhuman stage and begin an important transformation on the path of martial arts. So fast. Renly frowned slightly. Feeling the pressure of her competitor closing in, she had a strong desire to move forward. And Chaoyang took a deep breath, forgetting the music in his ears. He muttered to himself, how many months has it been? It hadn't even been 4 months since the end of the national competition in April. Lu Cheng's state had already soared from the peak of 6th pin to the brink of a breakthrough. This was like riding a rocket to the next level. After a short moment of shock, he suddenly remembered something. He smiled at Renli and Peng Liyun. It's less than a month before the all-knowing man starts crying. Gambling isn't good. Peng Liyun nodded seriously. He logged into his Weibo and quietly browsed through the popular content of the all-knowing man in ganghood over the years. It seemed like a farewell ceremony. Renli pondered for a few seconds. She took out her phone and found the gambling column. She planned to use her personal savings to earn some extra money and donate it. 10 seconds later, she revealed an embarrassed smile. She turned to An Chaoyang and the team leader, Zhong Ningtao. How do I do this? I've only heard of it, but never gambled on it. In the Japanese representatives area, Kaori Karasawa sat quietly. She looked at the arena and said in a neutral tone, Ikiai-kun, if you can't break through your past self, the competition will be tough. Yes. Muko Yamashita retracted his gaze. His expression had returned to normal. The old-fashioned and serious team leader looked at him and asked in a deep voice, Muko-kun, can you beat this contestant Lu Cheng? The void behind Muko Yamashita seemed to be shaking. A milky white light flashed and disappeared, rising into the vague shape of a dragon and tiger. Yes. He answered succinctly. Even if Lu Cheng made a breakthrough and completed his transformation according to the Chinese, I'm still confident in my current state. In the Longhu Club Forum, unparalleled Dragon King, who couldn't feel the cold wind and see the falling snow sighed. Lu Cheng is improving so fast. Now even his physical fitness is at the top of the 6th pin. It's not impossible for him to break through to the inhuman stage before the end of the year. Yeah. I thought Ichii Sakata, an outstanding 6th pin fighter, would be able to create some trouble for him. Who knew, from the beginning until now, Ichii Sakata didn't even have a chance. Road to the arena, sighed. Let's watch. Every fighter who can reach this level is not easy to deal with. The more advantageous the situation is, the more Lu Cheng can't be careless. Pig Riding Knight expressed his opinion. Brahman and Eternal Nightfall didn't have time to discuss or praise. They silently saved up their luck and watched the competition. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Ichii Sakata felt the cold wind getting stronger and his body stiffening. He knew that if this continued, he would be crushed sooner or later by Lu Cheng, who kept borrowing strength and getting stronger. This can't go on. I have to break out. Ichii Sakata screamed in his heart. He tried desperately, but he was too slow to make a decision. Lu Cheng's Mega Avalanche had already taken shape. It was powerful and almost impossible to interrupt. The more he fought, the more hopeless he felt. Ichii Sakata could see the referee raising his right hand and announcing his defeat. He could also see the criticism and ridicule on the internet and newspapers. No. I can't lose. I can't lose to an opponent of the same level. He thought of his father, who was also from the extreme Hadis sect. He thought of his father's fervent hope. He thought of his friends fawning over him. He thought of the admiration in the eyes of the girls. He thought of the various privileges he received in his daily life. He thought of the moment his halo disappeared and he became an ordinary samurai, he would lose everything and never be able to raise his head again. Even if he was still strong, he would no longer be the center of attention. No. I don't want this to happen. Ichii Sakata's mind buzzed. His vision seemed to be filled with a glaring blood red. The long-suppressed feelings of fear, hatred, and murderous intent in his heart suddenly erupted. At this moment, the pale white glow radiating from his body was gradually dyed a faint crimson. The hustle and bustle returned to silence and restraint. Come on. Ichii Sakata roared. He took a step forward with his left foot and punched with his right fist. With a bang, a crimson glow enveloped his body, exuding a thick murderous intent. It intimidated his opponent's heart and mind, making it difficult for Lu Cheng to focus for a short while. Extreme Hadis Sect Sure-Kill Move, 7 Sins Hadid Punch. This move used negative thoughts as fuel. It was equivalent to a combination of Dragon Roar Hadid Punch and the Army formula, bringing with it the effect of fear. Memories brought explosive power. Ichii Sakata broke through his past and delivered the strongest punch of his life. Amidst the deep roars of dragons and tigers, the pale red Hadu transformed into a sharp scythe of death. With Ichii Sakata's fist as the blade, it cleaved at his enemy. Lu Cheng had a premonition of danger when Ichii Sakata's white Hadu changed. Flipping his hands, he formed a seal and outlined the fearless, forwarding formula in his mind. As the voice echoed, he managed to intimidate his heart and mind in time. He bounced back and retreated quickly. He wasn't retreating to avoid Ichii Sakata's 7 Sins Hadid Punch. It was too fast for him to dodge. He was retreating to buy himself some time to prepare. In Lu Cheng's mind, the great river freezes appeared. In a vast expanse of whiteness, a huge crimson sun fell from the sky and smashed into this cold world. Boom! Ice and fire collided violently with his right fist, collapsing and condensing into a dark dot or vortex. Bam! Lu Cheng lowered his feet, bounced his back, and pulled back his right arm before shooting it out like lightning. Mutated version of severe warning. Poof! As the fist and the faint red Hadu punch collided, the glow disappeared. All the murderous intent, fear, and power seemed to have been absorbed by Lu Cheng and hidden in the vortex that had collapsed. Boom! The vortex disintegrated, and the violent recoil of energy slammed into Ichii Sakata's fist like a tidal wave, sending him flying. Lu Cheng's right arm was sore and swollen. For a moment, he lost his strength. Without waiting for it to recover, he stomped on the ground and pounced forward with a loud crack, closing in on his opponent who had yet to land. At this moment, Ichii Sakata struck the ground with a milky white Hadu punch, stirring up a cloud of dust and scattering shockwaves. Lu Cheng was about to throw another punch when his heart skipped a beat. He realized that his ability to lock onto his opponent had mysteriously lost its effect. In that instant, Ichii Sakata seemed to have disappeared from the arena. He couldn't sense him at all. An ice mirror formed in his mind as he sensed danger coming at him from behind. Lu Cheng turned his back, leaned to the side, and lightly kicked out with his left leg. Bam! The back of his foot struck Ichii Sakata, who had appeared out of nowhere. The impact made his body wobble, and the killing move he was about to unleash came to an abrupt halt. What Ichii Sakata had just used was the ninjutsu back attack that he had been secretly practicing for the past 2 years. However, it felt like he had fallen into a trap. Once the move was successful, Lu Cheng immediately followed up with a right kick, from the bottom up. Bam, bam, bam. 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks. He kicked Ichii Sakata until he was floating. Lu Cheng retracted his aura and immediately unleashed it. His body spun rapidly, and with a snap, his left leg kicked Ichii Sakata, sending him flying like a soccer ball. Thump! Ichii Sakata lost his balance and fell heavily. Then, he heard the ancient sound of the word attainment, and saw Lu Cheng's white martial arts shoes stop beside his ear. The referee raised his right hand and announced in English, "Lu Cheng wins." Chapter 456. Lu Cheng wins. The unfamiliar voice echoed in his ears. Lying on the ground, Ichii Sakata's mind went blank, forgetting to stand up. It was as though he had returned to his home, to the days he felt when he woke up every afternoon. I did my best and broke through the past, but I still lost the match. Lu Cheng's shoes were undamaged. He didn't seem to have used his full strength at all. He was still at ease. When I was overtaken by Mukokun, I comforted myself that running fast might not necessarily be a good one. The second half of the race was more important. When he had mastered the real wave, I was stuck at the same spot. I comforted myself that I was invincible below this level, I was the strongest, and I would definitely be able to advance in the future, but now, facing a 20-year-old opponent of the same level, I lost so pathetically and powerlessly. What else could I use to comfort myself? Lu Cheng withdrew his hand and coughed, waking Ichii Sakata up. Ichii Sakata stood up, his eyes full of confusion and frustration. With only a few Japanese words, Ichii Sakata couldn't communicate, so he didn't bother to say more. He cupped his hands and whispered in his mother tongue, "Thank you." Japanese samurai valued etiquette above all else. He couldn't embarrass his country in this aspect. Ichii Sakata returned the salute with a bow out of habit. He turned around and walked down the ring with hazy footsteps, completely ignoring the pain in his arms. He had used ninjutsu, back attack in a desperate situation, and his lower body was unsteady. Coupled with the recoil damage from the mutated version of severe warning, even though he had been able to block Lu Cheng's consecutive kicks, he was still floating in the air. His arms were almost broken or cracked. Lu Qing wasn't interested in Ichii Sakata's journey or behind-the-scenes story. He even forgot to greet the audience and rushed down the stone steps to find the competition supervisor. After retrieving his wallet and phone, he unlocked the screen and sent a message to Yen Jika. "I won." At this moment, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Xiaoyang, who had raised their right hands to congratulate Lu Qing, withdrew them awkwardly. They pretended to look around and commented on the matches in the other arenas. Yen Jika seemed to have been waiting. Soon, she sent a surprised emoji. 3.5 minutes. Ichii Sakata lives up to his name. Pfft, I'll be proud if you flatter me like this. Lu Qing smirked and sent a picture with an expression similar to his own. What Ku was implying was that those who could last more than 1 or 2 minutes against her were the best of the best among the 6th pin. Yen Jika sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. Hee, please call me professional orange bragger. Alright, now we can focus on class. Lu Qing put away his phone and returned to the stands. He was in a good mood and gave Peng Liyun, and Xiaoyang, Ren Li, and Zhong Ningtao a high five. The expressions of my teammates are a bit strange. What's wrong? Lu Qing asked in confusion. Nothing. Peng Liyun's gaze continued to wander. And Xiaoyang did not look sideways and focused on the song. Ren Li lowered her head and seriously studied the problem of how to bet. In the Longhu Club forum, Unparalleled Dragon King commented with a comical expression. I'm browsing the Japanese forums. It's so fun to read their comments. You know Japanese? Hurry up and translate it. Let me see how they flatter you. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Shaoling deliberately sent an emoji. Let's wait. Brahman quickly replied. After a while, Unparalleled Dragon King began to translate the comments one by one. Ichii Sakata has really become an ordinary person. Ichii-kun actually performed above his usual standards but still failed. He didn't stand a chance from the beginning to the end. Only when he unleashed the 7 sins kill was a surprise and hope, but it didn't have any effect. Idiot. Why would idiots like Ishihara from the Martial Arts Association give 4 wild cards to China? That Lu Qing was already very famous last year. I've even seen his name here. I feel like he's a genius, even better than Mukokun. I heard that China has many geniuses on the same level as him. All the contestants this time are of the same level. After all, it's an ancient country full of history. We can only look forward to Kori-chan and Mukokun. Kori-chan is the best. The Japanese are quite cultured. They didn't show any sour expressions. Wonton Seller said, laughing with arms akimbo expression. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Shaoling played dumb and said, although I don't understand what they're saying, it still feels good. There's nothing happier than the defeat, praise, and envy of the enemy. Little dragon, I'll leave the important task of translating such comments to you. Patting shoulder emoji, said Brahman excitedly. After browsing through the content of the live stream post, Lu Qing felt even better. He didn't appear again. After the first round of the double elimination competition ended, he and his teammates went straight back to the hotel. Standing in front of the window of the room on the top floor, he looked at the bright lights that symbolized human civilization and waited for the next round, full of ambition. Picking up his phone, Lu Qing shared his feelings with his wife. At the end of it, he replied, there's a prize for entering the top 16. Yen Jika was in class and couldn't reply in time. Lu Qing waited for a while but didn't hear the special reminder. He unlocked the screen subconsciously and wanted to send another message. But after he finished typing, he thought that sending too many messages would affect the girl's study, so he restrained himself and deleted the content he had written word by word. After washing up, Lu Qing turned off all the lights and lay on the bed in the quiet darkness, looking for something to do to pass the time. After seeing Fatty Jiang crying about being hungry for supper, he kindly sent the Xinjiang food map that he had stolen in the past few days to his best friend. You're so mean. I've decided to go out and eat old Lou's barbecue. I'll take a picture for you later. You're welcome. Jiang Fei sent a, come on, let's hurt each other, emoji. Pinch the fat on your body and touch your bulging belly. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Lu Qing scolded, besides, I'm going to sleep. I can't see what you send. Manual smiley face emoji. While dealing a blow to Fatty Jiang, Yenjika replied to Fatty Jiang's previous message. I'll wait for you to treat me to a big meal with the prize money. By the way, Empress Dowager will be back in China around the 14th of September. Okay. Lu Qing quickly changed the app and booked a flight to America on the 14th of September. He sent a screenshot to Yenjika. I really want to tear up a dozen pages of the calendar. Yenjika said what was in her heart in a joking tone. After chatting for a while, it was time for class and Lu Qing to go to bed. So they said goodnight to each other. The next morning, he woke up on time and did all kinds of things step by step. When he was done, he went to the training place and continued his hard training day after day. In his visualization, a cold light burst out. It was crystal clear and shone dreamily, but it set off the boundless darkness, endless loneliness, and extreme coldness without any heat. As the picture took shape, Lu Qing felt that the power of frost in his body was changing slightly. It was more illusory, more ethereal, more like a whirlpool that absorbed heat. This was the upgrade of the frost force to the ice spirit force. He had already found the way and was building a solid foundation. After practicing the ice spirit force for a while, Lu Qing took out the Emperor Yen diagram that had lost a lot of its charm. He focused his mind and tried to understand it, trying to picture that kind of concentration, that kind of heaviness, that kind of explosion and that kind of eruption in his mind. However, he was still a little short and couldn't visualize it successfully. Looks like the Emperor Yen force is the highly condensed Zhu Rong force. Lu Qing thought. When his mind reached its limit, he turned to training his fists and legs. It was another day without any surprises. They practiced in the morning and rested in the afternoon. At night, they came to the Xinxiang Stadium to watch the second round of double elimination draw. Because it was only the first round, no one had lost 2 rounds. So there were still 36 contestants and 18 matches. This time, Lu Cheng's name was drawn early. Who will it be? I hope it's not a Japanese samurai. I need to experience more different martial arts. He thought to himself. A few seconds later, the guest drew his opponent and shouted out the name, Miluo, Vagar. Vagar? Lu Cheng turned his head in shock and looked at the cold-looking man in the blue general uniform. He was looking at him with an expressionless face. His silver eyes were dark and flickering. Damn, I'm going against the second seed in the second round of double elimination. It's really not a Japanese samurai. Chapter 457. Vagar. In the live broadcast post of Longhu Club Forum, Unparalleled Dragon King typed with a Nike mouth emoji. This is getting interesting. Road to the Arena replied with a smiley face emoji. It's indeed interesting. He's right in front of the Inhuman stage, and it's the second round of the double elimination round where he doesn't have a strong desire to win. It's definitely a good experience for Lu Cheng to have an intense clash with an expert of the Inhuman stage. That's enough. We don't need to worry about the outcome. Anyway, I don't think Lu Cheng will win. Not necessarily. Lu Cheng's physical fitness, mastery of moves, and battle rhythm are all at the level of a top 6th pin fighter. Coupled with his powerful supernatural ability, it's not impossible for him to beat the newly promoted Inhuman Mighty One. A plumber eating mushrooms joined the discussion. But the chances are slim. Pig Riding Knight chimed in, Vagar is very popular in the surrounding countries. If it weren't for his strong supernatural ability that interferes with the ability to sense the root pulp, he might have been able to step into the Inhuman stage 1 or 2 years earlier. I think that among the 4 contestants, only Peng Liyun has a higher chance of winning against him. Ren Li is still a bit off. Above the sky, the rock and roll girl said, I heard that Xinxiang, Miluo, and Nanjing haven't had professional competitions yet. Compared to our country, their martial artists should be lacking in battle experience, right? This is good for Lu Qing. Ha, sister-in-law, don't think that Xingxiang and Miluo don't have mature professional matches. Their fighters have plenty of opportunities for actual combat. Unparalleled Dragon King explained, their domestic situation is often unstable, and they are affected by the nearby war-torn areas. Their economic environment isn't good either. There are many bloody underground arenas, street fights, and even occasional local wars. Their life and death experience is much better than Lu Qing and the others. Although Vagar is the son of a warlord and a future general, he likes to practice his martial arts on the battlefield the most. He trains his spirit through killing. As long as he doesn't die, he will definitely be a figure who dominates a region in the future. Sob sob sob, I'm getting nervous from your words. Brahman sent 2 streams of tears gushing out like a fountain. Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling, who was secretly observing, chimed in. This is the first time I've felt nervous since the end of the Nationals. So you're usually in a dead state, stupid Nightfall. When facing Yan Shaoling, Unparalleled Dragon King couldn't help but mock her. I'm angry. The baby was a little emotional. I'll forgive you if you go to the Lu Qing forum and post a live broadcast. Yan Shaoling wasn't stupid at all at this time. Sure, Schrodinger's tiger, little tiger, let's continue the live broadcast today. Although the match between Lu Qing and Vagar will definitely be broadcasted, you still have to take pictures for us on the spot. Unparalleled Dragon King gladly agreed and started looking for the little war reporter. My opponent is Vagar. Lu Qing didn't have the time to browse the forums, so he sent the results of the draw to Yan Zhika immediately. In the second round of double elimination, he actually encountered a strong opponent who was definitely in the top 4 of this competition. Yan Zhika woke up early as promised. She was not only practicing martial arts, but also concerned about her husband's competition. Soon, she replied with a blank, looking at the sky in the wind. Vagar. Cheng, I've realized that when you participate in the individual challenge tournament, your luck isn't very good. Lu Qing still had a way out, so he wasn't too nervous. Now that he had calmed down, he changed his mind and replied, maybe it's because I've spent my life's luck on certain things. Pfft. Yan Zhika pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She turned her head to the side and paused for a few seconds before replying, you're getting better at talking. It's okay, you have your sister's good luck shining on you. At this point, she sent an emoji with her chin resting on her hands. Cheng, I think it's time for you to attack first. Vagar was a representative figure of a national sect. Yan Zhika and Lu Qing had already discussed and analyzed him when they were chatting. Now, there was no need for more words or elaboration. They went straight to the point. Yeah, we have the same idea. Lu Cheng's body suddenly trembled. That was the eagerness to fight. The reason why Inhumans were called Inhumans was because they were close to monsters in all aspects. Lu Cheng's current insane physical strength could only be said to not be at a disadvantage in front of mighty ones of this level. If he were to engage in a protracted battle or a battle of attrition, he wouldn't stand a chance. On the contrary, it would be easier for his opponent to suppress him by relying on his realm and strength advantage. The best way to win against a strong opponent like Vagar was to use the 3 axes of Qing Yao Jin to gain the upper hand and put his opponent at a disadvantage for a short period of time. Then, he would seize the opportunity to find a way to win and end the battle quickly before his opponent could show his strength. Be it China, Japan, Miluo, Old Europe, or New America, all the martial arts combat systems were essentially the same at the critical junctures. For example, the Inhuman's root pulp would mutate to a certain extent due to cultivation, and the body would undergo a metamorphosis. As for how to cultivate, that would be up to each individual. Miluo, for example, blended the 2 martial arts philosophies of China and Polo. Under the influence of years of war, they developed a unique cultivation system. Through perverse polishing and tempering of the body, they would stimulate their potential and awaken the natural treasures of the human body. They would slowly guide the root pulp and gradually mutate. Xinjiang and Nanjing were similar. Therefore, if the martial artists of these countries couldn't reach the inhuman level, they would be miserable in middle age. Due to overdraft and old injuries, they would be tormented by illness and pain. Most of them wouldn't live past 50. If the environment was stable and the economy was good, there would be fewer people practicing such martial arts. Unless they were desperate, they wouldn't choose it. However, in Xinjiang, Miluo, and Nanjing, the economy was poor, the situation was chaotic, and the unemployment rate was high. People who were so poor that they wouldn't live past 50 could be found everywhere. Given such an opportunity to change their fate, they would definitely grab it. Lu Qing remembered a scholar who had studied such situations and published a book called The Influence of the Geographical Environment on the Martial Arts System. While he and Yan Zhika were discussing how to fight Vagar, Peng Liyun was drawn to face the 8th seed of the competition, a top-notch 6th pin with a strong psychic supernatural ability, Li Shaokong of Nanjing. Everyone's luck isn't so good today, Peng Liyun said with a smile as he played with his phone. While he was talking, Renli drew the Japanese fighters except for Kori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita, and Ichii Sakata. A few seconds after he finished, and Chaoyang was also drawn. His opponent was a strong fighter from Miluo who had the strength of a top-notch 6th pin. Lu Qing looked deeply at Peng Liyun and nodded solemnly. No, it's just the two of us. After that, they looked at each other and smiled. They weren't upset or angry. In fact, they couldn't wait to drag their opponent into the ring. Not long after, Lu Cheng's match against Vagar was about to begin as he had been drawn earlier. At this moment, he saw the request from Unparalleled Dragon King. After thinking for a while, he turned to Peng Liyun, Renli, and Chaoyang. Can you help me take a picture later? Compared to Zhong Mingtao, he trusted Peng Liyun and the rest more. This was probably the appreciation of martial artists. Huh. Renli and the rest were at a loss at first. Then, they gave him a strange look, as if to say, I didn't expect you to be like this. I've seen narcissistic people before, but not this narcissistic. Cough. Lu Qing blushed and quickly explained. A friend of mine is doing a live stream post for the King of Youth Pro League. He asked me to take a few pictures for the occasion. He doesn't know I'm Lu Qing. I can't tell him I'm going to the competition. Wait a moment. Got it. Peng Liyun smiled leisurely. I have an account in the forum too. I'm also lurking. F***K. Lu Qing immediately asked, what's your name? I mainly mingle in Shangqing sect and my own personal forum. You probably don't know me. I'm called Multi-String Trickster. Peng Liyun answered with interest. What about you guys? I only read and don't comment. I don't have an account. Renli was a little embarrassed. I'm afraid I can't help but quarrel with others. You know how to quarrel? Lu Cheng was shocked. Yeah, very good. Renli answered seriously. But the rest didn't quite believe her. And Chaoyang smiled. I don't pay much attention to the martial arts forum. Most of the time, I'm reading books, looking for music, reading comments, and writing. Writing. He's a literary hero of a generation. Don't offend him, or he'll write about me as a weirdo. Lu Qing complained in his mind and told them his nickname on the forum. My name is Schrodinger's Tiger. You guys can help me post a picture in the live post later. Schrodinger's Tiger. Multi-String Trickster. We're a good match. Peng Liyun joked. Without waiting for Lu Qing to reply, he seemed to have touched something. His eyes started to lose focus and his thoughts drifted. Turning his gaze back to the arena, he sent a message to Yan Zhika. Snickering emoji, it's time for me to go on stage. How are you going to cheer me on today? Cheer me on? Yan Zhika deliberately blinked blankly and immediately sent him a picture. It was a marriage certificate with their names written on it and their photos pasted on it. How is it? Are you motivated to see this? Yan Zhika said. Yeah. Nodding heavily expression, Lu Qing replied. Fighting for the sake of his family. Lu Qing unlocked his phone, switched to the live stream interface and passed it to Penglian. He took a deep breath, left his seat and walked towards the arena. Opposite him, the tall and muscular Vagar suddenly stood up. Cheers filled the arena. The sound waves of Vagar suppressed all the restlessness. As a genius martial artist with a strong personality, he was also very popular in Xinjiang. Thump, thump, thump. His footsteps were heavy as he walked towards the stone steps majestically. He had a terrifying domineering aura. Lu Qing didn't back down. His aura gradually grew. He was like a majestic white snow mountain that hadn't moved for thousands of years. The biting cold wind that surrounded him contained an intimidating aura of blood. Bam! Both of them stepped into the arena at the same time. When their eyes met, it was as if lightning flashed. Standing in his position, Lu Qing closed his eyes. Bits and pieces of information about Vagar flashed through his mind. The supernatural ability of thunder and lightning. His martial arts were born from fighting, concise and practical. Good at using elbows and knees. Great strength and speed. Similar to the inhuman stage, what a formidable opponent. Therefore, he had to start the fight first and gain the upper hand. Vagar was wearing a Miluo-style general hat. At this moment, he lowered the brim of the hat and used the shadow to cover half of his eyes, making the silver-white lightning in his pupils even more terrifying. Before long, the referee raised his right hand and swung it down. Begin. Just as he finished speaking, Lu Qing raised his hands and formed a seal. He said in a low voice, "All right. P.S. My previous updates were on time. Actually, I didn't save any chapters. Probably because I was in Japan, which was an hour faster than here. By the time I finished writing according to the usual procrastination pace, even though it was already 7 in the local area, it was only 6 in the country. Facepalm, for this trip, I've brought back a few cuttlefish toys as gifts for everyone. I've started the lucky draw on the official WeChat account. Everyone, leave a comment. Chapter 458. All right. The deep ancient voice reverberated. Lu Qing dashed out in a white line, leaving afterimages behind. He was in front of his opponent at a shocking speed. Vagar was wearing a military cap. He lowered his body and stood with his left foot in front of him and his right foot behind him. He spread his arms apart and got into a boxing stance. At this moment, he suddenly lowered his waist and leaped up like a spring. His majestic and burly body created a violent sound of wind as he fell down like Mount Tai. He bent his knees and directly hit Lu Cheng's chest. The white knee pads at the back of his knees seemed to have turned into deadly weapons. Miluo's martial arts style was to master basic movements such as punches, elbows, kicks, knees, and so on. They didn't care about complicated routines. They freely combined them in a way that was most suitable for actual combat. Continuous attacks were fierce and swift. In order to achieve the effect of defeating the enemy, the knees and elbows of the martial artists were trained in a special way. Vagar didn't move forward but instead retreated. He grasped the timing very well. He took a few steps forward and didn't give his opponent time to prepare a killer move. Once his knee was blocked, he would immediately smash his elbow, kick his calf, and follow up with a series of deadly attacks. It was impossible to guard against and block. Seeing that Lu Cheng was about to crash into Vagar's knees and walk right into the trap, Lu Cheng suddenly withdrew his chi and blood. His force, spirit, and forward momentum collapsed inward and concentrated in his lower abdomen. His high-speed running came to an abrupt halt. Lu Cheng had been teammates with Lin Ke for a long time, and he often guided Yan Zhika in her practice. Naturally, he was familiar with their yin-yang twist and meteor blast. With the help of his little fairy and his own experience, he gradually found the knack of using force concentration and north wind footwork to imitate the ability to stop at will. Although it was definitely not as exquisite and marvelous as the original version, it could still be of some use at critical moments. Squeak. A sharp, ear-piercing sound of high-speed friction sounded. Lu Cheng's position was one step behind Vagar's predicted position. It was this one step that caused Vagar's knee to weaken. When it reached him, it was no longer at its peak state. Boom! The force in Lu Cheng's dantian erupted like a volcano. His muscles swelled and his body grew taller. The ground beneath his feet cracked open menacingly. He hurriedly swung his shoulders, his right fist clenched like a hammer in front of him, carrying a tremendous force as he struck out with a loud bang. Bam! He punched his opponent's knee, stirring up a strong wind that sent Vagar flying in midair. Crack! With a stomp of his feet, Lu Cheng's body shot out like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, he was right in front of Vagar. Forming a seal with both hands, he pointed at himself. In his mind, he sketched out an ancient character that would never admit defeat. Fight! Lu Cheng let out a low roar. His eyes were bloodshot. He pushed his feet inward, twisted his knees backward, and tightened his waist. He channeled all his strength into his right arm. The martial arts shoes on his feet directly burst open, complementing the splashing stones. At the same time, his right arm swelled up and raised high. His fist covered the sky and the sun as it fell, making the airflow in the air abruptly produce a loud bang. Lu Cheng gave it his all right from the start. He didn't hold back at all. Vagar had just regained his footing when he was faced with such a blow. He had no choice but to take it head-on. His face was as cold as ever. His big brimmed hat was lowered. His eyes shone brightly. His right fist was covered in a layer of lightning, as though he was wearing a loose thunder glove. Bam! His thick arms swung quickly. His fist was covered in lightning as he punched upwards. Bam! The two fists collided violently. Vagar's right arm seemed to tremble. His feet sank into the ground of the arena with a crack. He was a few centimeters shorter than before. With the fighting formula, Lu Cheng was able to suppress this young mighty one who was almost at the inhuman stage and stop him in his tracks. Lu Cheng was prepared. His right arm bounced back and his body swayed. He took a deep breath and gathered the numbness in his arm, his chi, blood, spirit, and force into his lower abdomen. He formed a human body Big Dan and stabilized himself in his previous position. With the eruption of Dan Chi, Lu Cheng's thigh swelled. He pulled out his left leg tightly and kicked towards the side of his opponent's knee. Vagar was slower by half a beat. He barely managed to lift his knee and swing his leg slightly. He hit Lu Cheng's instep squarely. With a dull thud, his body swayed forward. He saw Lu Cheng swinging his right arm and about to punch. Vagar didn't dare to underestimate Lu Cheng. He activated his potential and stabilized his center of gravity. His left fist was hooked to his waist. He was wearing a silver-white jumping glove. But at this moment, Lu Cheng's punch paused for a moment. His rhythm changed. When Vagar's heavy punch was about to hit him, he released the strength in his shoulder, shook his right arm, and punched downwards. It was in this change of pace that he found the time to visualize the ice spirit holy light. He used the advantage to exchange for the opportunity to use severe warning. In the boundless darkness, everything was so lonely. There was not even a trace of heat. The crystal clear and dreamy cold light seemed to be just an illusion. Soon after, thunderclouds appeared. Yin and yang collided, and the sound spread out, breaking all the frozen state. Boom! The sound of thunder was deafening. Lu Cheng's fist was covered in white frost and condensed into ice crystals. He smashed onto his opponent's electric glove. Crackle! Silver flew everywhere. Vagar stood there, stunned. His left hand from his fist to his arm was shrouded in mist and frost. His eyes lost their light for a moment, as though he had just walked out of a deep, frozen sleep. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was thrown backward by his heavy punch and involuntarily took a step back. But while he was retreating, his right arm swung back and his left wrist flicked at the right time, throwing out a ball of glittering and translucent cold light, burning towards the enemy's face. His killer moves were in succession, leaving no gaps. The cold light flew and arrived in an instant. Vagar, who had just regained consciousness by relying on his tyrannical physical body, saw this unavoidable and unstoppable attack. His heart tightened, and his aura suddenly erupted. A burst of dazzling light appeared all over his body, and with him as the core, electric snakes danced in all directions. Secret technique, thunder explosion. Bam! The ice was hit and turned into flowing light. Lu Cheng, however, had already stabilized his center of gravity. He pounced again, visualizing the dreamy and deadly ice spirit holy light in his mind. He knew clearly that although the internal explosion punch could hurt Vagar at his current level, it would be difficult for him, who had an inhuman body, to restrain the internal shock and affect his movements before the third strike. That way, he would be suppressed very quickly and might not have the opportunity to use internal explosion. Therefore, when facing such a strong opponent, control was the priority. Severe warning was the best choice. Everything has its end, and so did thunder explosion. Lu Qing deliberately slowed down his attack. He waited until the silver-white electric snakes that stretched out like hedgehogs dimmed. Then, he took a step forward, lowered his waist, and punched at Vagar's lower abdomen. His fist went straight forward and was quickly covered in a layer of white light. Vagar's eyes, hidden in the shadow of his large-brimmed hat, grew colder. He lowered his arm and waved it, forming the electric gloves. This was an inhuman whose root pulp had mutated. His every move was heavy and carried his own supernatural ability. He could release and retract it as he pleased. Just as he launched his electric fist, Lu Qing suddenly clamped his tailbone and straightened his body. He raised his right arm to dodge the attack and launched a low kick with his left leg. In the snowy sky, coldness rises from the bottom of his feet. Bam! Sensing danger, Vagar dispersed the force of his punch. His terrifying right leg, half the size of Lu Cheng's, met force with force. At this moment, Lu Cheng swayed his center of gravity, arched his body forward, and stepped down with his left leg. In a flash, he was behind Vagar. He raised his left arm, like the omnipresent cold wind. The ice spirit holy light in his mind was broken by the tremors of the thundercloud. Boom! Everything was ready. He swung his fist down like a baton. Vagar had been at a disadvantage since the beginning and hadn't been able to turn the tables. Now that he hadn't retracted his right leg, the enemy's attack had landed him in a precarious situation. He couldn't help but feel angry and resentful. At this critical juncture, he let go of all his contempt and arrogance. He took a deep breath and fully activated the treasures of his body. BZZT BZZT BZZT. Rings of electric light surrounded his body. He bounced up on one leg, leaned back, and spun into a terrifying drill. He collided head-on with Lu Cheng's left fist. Vagar's ultimate move, electric piercing. Bam! Amidst the dull thud, a bright light exploded, blinding most of the audience. They couldn't see clearly what was happening in the arena. There, Vagar fell to the ground on one knee. His eyes were unfocused, and he had lost his general hat. Around him was a cloud of frost. Lu Cheng's hair stood on end, and his body was trembling violently. All he could see were silver snakes. He saw an opportunity, but he was so numb that he couldn't even use force concentration. In a breath, the two recovered at the same time. They rushed to each other and clashed again. Bam! Amidst the loud noise, Peng Liyun suddenly sighed. Lu Qing really could have won just now. Ren Lian and Chaoyang had just recovered from the exciting battle. They nodded at his words. Oh right, did you take a picture of Lu Qing? And Chaoyang recalled his teammate's reminder. Peng Liyun pondered for a moment before replying sincerely. I forgot. The three of them fell silent. Peng Liyun passed his unlocked phone to Ren Li and said seriously, You're the best at taking pictures. You do it. Okay. Renly, always confident, took the phone without hesitation. Chapter 459. Gotcha. Renly made some adjustments and took 3 photos of the arena. After looking at them with satisfaction, she posted them on the live stream thread to complete the request. After watching the battle for a while, she refreshed the post to see what others thought of her photography skills. Schrodinger's tiger, the photos are so blurry, said Unparalleled Dragon King. Okamoto's fan said with a funny face, Little tiger, are your hands shaking because you've been working too hard these few days? I can only tell based on the color of their clothes, said Below the Sky. Renly's eyelids twitched. She couldn't help but reply with Lu Cheng's account. They're all moving at high speed. It's good enough that you can get this effect with your phone. There was nothing wrong with her explanation, but the exclamation mark at the end seemed a little unnecessary. Little tiger, are you in a bad mood today? Asked Wonton Seller weakly. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said that you've been working too hard. You're obviously not satisfied, said Okamoto's fan, who couldn't stop talking about dirty topics. You're the one who's not satisfied, Renly retorted without holding back. You're using disgusting as funny. There was a moment of silence in the live thread. No one replied for a full 10 seconds until Wonton Seller said, stunned expression. Little tiger, you've been hacked, haven't you? Why do I feel like I'm going to scold the whole world today? Renly took a deep look at her phone and quickly exited the forum. She locked her screen and continued to watch the battle as if nothing had happened. Previously, Lu Cheng had given it his all. He had utilized his secret techniques, unique skills, on-the-spot experience, and battle talent to the fullest. Only then was he able to complete the offensive and suppress his opponent. He had almost defeated Vagar in a short period of time. However, even though he had performed above his usual standards, the inhuman monster still managed to seize the opportunity to resist and escape from the desperate situation. He had pulled both parties back to the same starting line. Of course, after such a round of attacks, Lu Cheng could vaguely feel that his martial arts had improved to a certain extent. It wasn't referring to the specific realm of cultivation, but the level of actual combat. Bam! Vagar's right fist was wearing a silver-white thunder glove. His punch was so powerful that Lu Cheng had no choice but to block it with the outburst of his dance stage. He used force concentration to dispel the paralysis caused by the electric shock and took a step back to defend himself. Bam bam! Vagar's punches, elbows, kicks, and knees came one after another without any gaps. Like a tsunami of lightning, each wave higher than the previous, Lu Cheng was pressured to the point where he couldn't use the 9 words formula or prepare a simplified form of physical invulnerability. He could only use the 24 blizzard strikes to push the explosion of the dance stage to meet force with force. Bam bam! Every time Lu Cheng borrowed strength and was about to turn the situation around with 7 or 8 consecutive explosions, Vagar would always pause for half a beat and use thunder explosion or similar moves to interrupt Lu Cheng's build-up. Then, he would return to his heavy punches and kicks, not giving his opponent time to prepare a killer move. Relying on the advantage of realm and strength, he slowly but surely wore down his opponent, slowly gaining an opportunity to win. This gave Lu Cheng almost no hope of turning the tables. He felt like he was in a situation where he was boiling a frog in warm water. He deeply experienced the horror of an inhuman expert. If there were no more accidents, he would lose for sure. This realization gradually emerged in his heart. However, he couldn't find a way to break free from the suppression. The enemy was too strong. The outcome seemed to be unchangeable. I can only take the risk. Lu Cheng made up his mind. His eyes were filled with determination. He held onto his chi and stamped his feet. His right arm swelled, and he punched with a straight punch. Bam bam bam! Vagar's left fist, covered in a silver-white glove, punched out fiercely and collided with Lu Cheng's fist. Bam! With a muffled explosion, sparks flew. Lu Cheng's arm bounced back and his body swayed backward. Suddenly, he straightened his back and flew backward. He didn't put on any airs and landed himself in a desperate situation. How could Vagar let go of this opportunity? His thick and sturdy legs kicked, and his burly and majestic body gave chase. In an instant, he was in front of Lu Cheng. He wanted to end the battle in 2 or 3 moves. His inhuman speed was like a top 6th pin fighter with the effect of the attainment formula. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't try to regain his footing and put on airs again. Instead, he took the opportunity to raise his hands and form a hand seal. In his mind, he outlined an ancient word that was filled with the smell of blood on the battlefield. He put himself in a desperate situation just to find a chance to use the 9 words formula. Put yourself in a situation of death and then come back to life. Army. Lu Cheng said in a low voice. His murderous aura almost materialized and pierced into Vagar's head, evoking the fear hidden deep in his heart and the fear of death. Vagar's movements slowed down. However, he was an inhuman mighty one who was often on the battlefield and tempered his mind by killing. He was only in a trance for a moment before regaining his senses. This prevented his opponent from following up with a severe warning. Lu Cheng's heart was like an ice mirror. He suppressed his frustration and gave up the chance to go for his opponent's heart. Swinging his back and bulging his muscles, he circled to the side of his opponent with the northern wind footwork. Boom! He broke through the airflow barrier in his high-speed movement and created a strong wind that blew towards his opponent's eyes. Dipper lifting dipper. Just as Vagar squinted his eyes, Lu Cheng formed another hand seal and pointed to himself. He let out a low roar from his throat, fighting. His body suddenly grew taller and his muscles bulged. He looked like a heavenly soldier from the legends. His right fist became unusually heavy and was about to strike. It's really the fighting formula. Lu Cheng and Vagar exchanged blows in a flash, so Peng Liyun couldn't be sure. Now that he heard it for the second time, he muttered to himself. Lu Cheng had already learned quite a few 9 words formulas. At the Japanese representative team, Muko Yamashita, who hadn't started his match yet, suddenly frowned. Facing the explosive fighting formula, Vagar didn't dare to be careless. His eyes glowed silver and he leaned sideways. Circles of lightning snakes circled around him and spun rapidly towards his opponent. Exclusive unique skill, lightning piercing. But at this moment, Lu Cheng seemed to have been prepared. He straightened his back and dragged his right fist to dodge the attack, causing Vagar's lightning piercing to hit the air and fly somewhere not far away. He had wasted a fighting formula in exchange for his opponent's unique skill to miss. In the sparring sessions a few days ago, Peng Liyun had dutifully imitated Vagar's fighting style. This gave Lu Cheng a good understanding of this milieu mighty one. He clearly knew that after using lightning piercing or invincible thunder explosion, there would be a short pause and he wouldn't be able to unleash a chain of attacks. This was his chance. Kacha! Lu Cheng stepped on the ground and his body shot forward like an arrow. In an instant, he was close to his opponent. His left arm was covered in a thick layer of ice armor, blocking the front. His right hand was clenched into a fist, ready to strike. At the same time, he outlined the crystal clear and dreamy ice spirit holy light in his mind, creating a darkness with almost no heat. He planned to deal a fatal blow to Vagar, who was in the middle of a pause. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, had no strength to unleash his attacks, and would be defeated if he tried to block it head-on, Vagar's eyes were filled with hatred. His silver eyes revealed a deep coldness. Suddenly, he jumped up. He jumped high and landed his feet at an angle, stomping heavily on Lu Cheng's head. Good timing. Lu Cheng had already experienced this and was prepared. The thundercloud in his mind roared, breaking through the ice spirit. His bent knees and slightly arched back suddenly straightened, and he flew up vertically. His right fist went straight up towards his opponent, who couldn't change his direction in midair. Sky rocket cannon. Head blow. If they were to exchange blows like this, Lu Cheng would at most bounce back and stagger. On the other hand, Vagar's mind would definitely become rigid. In that case, he would fall from the air like a stone and land heavily on the ground, giving Lu Qing the perfect opportunity to win. At this moment, Vagar twisted his back and crossed his legs, weaving a sizzling silver-white electric ball. It fell slowly like a bubble and hit Lu Qing, who couldn't avoid it. Using the reverse momentum, he shifted his position in mid-air and moved away slightly. This was an immature move that he had never used in actual combat before. Bzzzt. Clenching his fist, Lu Qing, who was flying up into the air, brushed past Vagar while his body was numb. He didn't manage to hit him. Bam! Vagar swung his elbow towards his opponent's chest. Lu Qing barely blocked with his left arm, which was protected by ice armor, but he was sent flying. With this exchange of blows, Vagar gained the momentum to land first. He bounced and dashed towards his opponent. As Lu Qing gathered his strength and unleashed his supernatural ability to throw a giant fireball, Vagar nimbly changed his direction and dodged it. Boom! Lu Qing's final move hit the arena, creating a strong explosion. Waves of red flames and violent shockwaves rolled out. Bam! Just as he was about to shift his position, Vagar caught up with him. He leaped up, turned into an electric drill, and hit Lu Qing with a sizzling sound. Lu Qing blocked with his arms and saw a flash of light. He was paralyzed on the spot. When he regained consciousness, he smelled a burnt smell. His eyes reflected the figure of the referee raising his right hand. Vagar wins. The hoarse voice reverberated, and the entire Xinxiang Stadium erupted in excitement. P.S. It's nearing the Dragon Boat Festival, so I have to go to my mother-in-law's house. I'll be on my way in the afternoon. The second update is at midnight. I'll continue tomorrow. Chapter 460. Amidst the cheers of those who understood and those who didn't, Lu Qing took a deep breath and shook his aching arm. He came back to reality from his numb state and accepted his defeat. He felt that he should be happy. To be able to force Vagar, who had reached the inhuman stage more than a year ago, to the brink of defeat twice was definitely something to be proud of. He could leave with his head held high. However, he couldn't bring himself to be happy. His heart was filled with faint sighs and regrets. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. There were no problems with my choice of tactics, judgment and improvisation. In fact, they could even be considered outstanding. But there was still a little bit of difference. I couldn't grasp the opportunity to win. Logic told him that this was already the best result. If he hadn't cautiously used the ice armor, his arm might have fractured in the last two heavy blows and he would have to bid farewell to the King of Youth Pro League early. However, Lu Qing was still unwilling to give up. He desperately wanted to make up for that little bit of difference. And now, the most practical and possible way was to grasp the essence and charm of the Emperor Yen diagram as soon as possible. He wanted to elevate the Zhurong force and begin the transformation of his body. Thoughts whirling in his head, he gave Vagar a post-match salute and turned to the edge. He walked down the stone steps and came before the match supervisor. Before he could speak, the supervisor took out his wallet and handed it back to him. Seeing the wallet alone, Lu Qing was stunned for a moment. He was about to send a message to Yenjika. Then he realized that his phone wasn't with him. He had given it to his teammates to take pictures. He shook his head and laughed. Keeping the wallet, he walked back to where Peng Liyun and the rest were, gradually recovering from the electric shock. In the arena, the majestic Vagar looked deeply at Lu Qing's retreating figure. He walked to the center of the arena and picked up the dusty and tattered general's hat. He flicked it a few times but didn't put it back on. He turned and left, not even lingering in the Xinxiang Stadium. Amazing, Shikoku. On the Japanese's side, the samurais who were watching the match exclaimed in awe. Ichii Sakata's face was pale. He was even more shocked than when he lost to Lu Qing yesterday. He knew that the gap between them wasn't small, but he didn't expect it to be so big that it made him feel hopeless. In the battle just now, Lu Qing, who wasn't at the inhuman stage, had displayed strength close to the inhuman stage. There was a fundamental difference between them. How did he do it? He really hadn't advanced yet. Using arcana? I have some too. I used to be called a monster, but now I have to admit that some people are the real monsters. Muko Yamashita retracted his expression and turned to look at his fellow disciples. Yurangjin, if Lu Qing can reach this level at this stage, you can too. Don't be in a hurry to cultivate wave. Once you reach his current level, things will be much simpler. Yes. Ichii Sakata was touched, but his tone was not confident enough. Muko Yamashita raised his thick eyebrows and said in a deep voice, "Our extreme Hadu sect doesn't need cowards." Yes. Ichii Sakata shivered, his expression turning solemn. In the live stream thread of the Longhu Club forum, everyone had already forgotten about the small incident from before. Once again, they were passionately discussing the battle between Vagar and Lu Qing. What a pity. Biting her handkerchief with tears in her eyes, Wonton Seller was the first to post. It is indeed a pity, I even thought that Lu Qing could win just now. Unparalleled Dragon King replied. In the future, we will have to divide the realms further. Between the inhuman and normal dance stage, and between the 5th pin and the 6th pin, there will be a separate category. This category will be called Lu Qing. Road to the Arena said, "Damn it, my understanding of the world was almost overturned by him. If it was someone who had just advanced to the inhuman stage, he might have really won. I feel that Lu Qing is about to break through." Pig Riding Knight suggested a possibility seriously. How is that possible? Even a rocket wouldn't be that fast. A plumber eating mushrooms followed with a spitting expression. That's right, breaking through also needs to follow the fundamentals. Invincible Punch added. This guess was quickly drowned out. Brahman said with a bouncing voice. I know that my idol has done well to achieve this level, but I was still gloomy and unhappy just now. But seeing you guys praise him, I'm happy again. Continue to praise me, I can take it. Eternal Nightfall, come and see. I saw it long ago, I was busy building and praying that Lu Qing won't get an inhuman in the next round. Yan Shaoling took the time to reply. Somewhere in the stands, Lu Qing walked towards Peng Liyun and high-fived him. I've always found Vagar an eyesore. I thought he looked pretty cool in a police cap. But now he doesn't have one, said Peng Liyun humorously, complimenting Lu Qing tactfully. Sure enough, other than being in a daze and challenging others, the great Devil King was just like the rumors. He was an easygoing and easy to get along with. Lu Qing found Peng Liyun's words very down-to-earth and couldn't help but laugh. At this moment, and Chaoyang also high-fived him. Brilliant. Huh, I was so focused on your match that I forgot to take a picture. Take a picture. Lu Qing thought of something and asked with a smile, so, you forgot to help me post? Nope, we still remember this. Renli is the best at taking pictures, so we passed the task to her, and Chaoyang, who had brought his own digital camera, answered without blushing at all. Hearing herself mentioned, Renli took a step forward and passed the phone to Lu Qing. She nodded heavily. Someone was bad-mouthing you in the forum previously, so I helped you to scold them. Huh? Lu Qing was confused. When he realized what might have happened, he suddenly had a bad feeling. He lowered his head, unlocked the screen, entered the forum, clicked on the live broadcast post and scrolled through the content. Thank you so much. The corners of his mouth twitched as he hurriedly replied, thank you. The person who spoke just now wasn't me. I wasn't hacked, but I felt that my photography skills weren't good enough, so I asked someone for help. I didn't expect her to help me post. Her. Little tiger, did you ask your girlfriend for help? Wonton Seller followed with an I knew it emoji. So it's a girl, no wonder she's so sensitive, Unparalleled Dragon King suddenly realized. Girlfriend? Lu Qing quickly denied, no, it's another friend. Another female friend? Tiger, not bad, bringing another female friend on a trip. Okamoto's fan said in a rather flirtatious tone. You're thinking too much. There are other friends too, Lu Qing emphasized. Okamoto's fan said with an angry smile, emoji, you don't have to explain this, just tell me if she's pretty. If she's pretty, I don't mind being scolded by her. She's okay, Lu Qing replied hesitantly. The conversation just now made him a little scared, not because he was afraid of anything, but because he had learned from those long-distance relationships that once two people were too far apart, their trust and sense of security would become fragile, and they couldn't withstand suspicion again and again. Therefore, if they wanted to go on steadily, both parties had to understand the word, avoid suspicion. Even if they had a clear conscience, they had to consider the possibility that they would do something untoward. Taking the initiative to stay away from things that would arouse their partner's suspicion and put them in a bad mood, so as to avoid arousing suspicion and causing trouble. A person's freedom is always relative, especially when you have a partner. Should I tell Ku about this? If I don't tell her, she probably won't know, and this matter will pass quietly, but if she finds out about this on a whim, even if she doesn't say it, she should have some thoughts in her mind. Thoughts churning, Lu Qing quickly made a decision. He switched to the QQ interface and told Yenjika about his loss to Vagar. Yenjika replied with a hug emoji. I saw some of it just now, and I thought you could win. Not bad, when you transform, you will definitely win. She comforted her Cheng in this way. After a round of tender and encouraging words, Lu Qing took the initiative to say, F***ck, Peng Liyun got me into trouble. After sending this message, he glanced at Peng Liyun and said in his heart, Comrade Liyun, the organization has decided, you'll take the blame. What's wrong with him? Yenjika replied with an emoji of a cat hugging a salted fish. Didn't Unparalleled Dragon King and the rest ask me to take photos for the live broadcast? Before I went to the competition, I asked for Peng Liyun's help, but he didn't expect him to be so irresponsible and threw the responsibility to Renli. In the end, Renli quarreled with someone in the live broadcast thread, and I almost couldn't explain. Lu Qing replied. Pfft. They're so unreliable. Renli is usually so quiet, why would she quarrel with someone? Yenjika replied with an emoji of, I'm so scared that I dropped my dried fish. As Lu Cheng's competition was early today, it wasn't time for her class yet. She opened the forum and browsed through the live broadcast thread, and unconsciously bit her lip. I heard from Peng Liyun and Xiaoyang that Renli is especially good at insulting people online. Lu Qing threw the blame to her. Quite a contrast. I feel a little cute. Covering mouth and laughing expression, Yenjika replied. What kind of person is Renli normally? This question made Lu Qing feel a lot of pressure. He pondered for a while and organized his words. She's quite muddle-headed, but very confident in everything. Because she's too bad with directions, the team leader has been following her, and didn't have much contact with us. I see. She's quite different from what I imagined her to be. Scratching chin with hand and rolling eyes expression, Yenjika replied. She exhaled, shook her head and laughed softly. She changed the topic and didn't continue to pester him. At this time, she received another message from Huang Shiwen, her classmate who went abroad with her. Let's get together tonight. There's a ball at Tom's house. Many of our fellow villagers will come, and there will be famous seniors and seniors from our school. Yenjika didn't hesitate and replied directly, I don't really like crowded places. Seriously, what's the point of staying at home all the time? You don't even know a single classmate, how are you going to integrate into the class? You can't always be a loner, you'll be isolated. If anything happens in the future, you won't be able to find anyone to help you. Dress up properly, come and relax, and adjust your mood. Huang Shiwen persuaded. I don't think there's any meaning in having a good relationship with my classmates. After Yenjika typed this sentence, she felt that it was too harsh, so she deleted and rewrote it. After she was done, she read it again and felt that her words were too soft, and her attitude wasn't clear and firm enough. So she deleted it again and typed again, I'm indeed a very boring person, I hate crowds and it's boring. But I like it very much. It allows me to study in peace. Don't inform me of similar gatherings in the future. I'm really not interested. After reading it a few times and making some changes, she clicked send and felt relaxed. Really, my good intentions are taken for granted. Huang Shiwen looked at the message and put down her phone angrily. She said to the two guys in front of her, "She's not coming. She's a very boring and gloomy person. Yes, the kind of old lady who doesn't know how to smile." In the Xinxiang Stadium, Peng Liyun noticed that Lu Cheng was looking at him. He touched his cheek doubtfully and said, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Lu Cheng replied with a smile. "Comrade Liyun, you're a good scapegoat." Peng Liyun frowned slightly and shook his head. He decided not to continue the topic with this weird guy. At this moment, a match had ended. It was his turn to fight the seated player, Li Shaokong. Chapter 461. Li Shaokong was about 1.6 meters tall, skinny, and had dark skin. He had the looks of a typical Southern Jing person, except that he looked slightly older, not like he was in his early 20s. His eyes were dark and deep, as if they could drown in a person's heart. He had a strong psychic supernatural ability that allowed him to hypnotize his opponent during a match, disrupting his opponent's emotions and triggering fear and other negative feelings. He could achieve an effect similar to the army formula or the lion's roar. He didn't even need to visualize to complement it. He was a very dangerous fighter, as evidenced by the fact that he was the 8th seed of the tournament. After watching Peng Liyun leave for the arena, and Xiaoyang took off his earphones and looked at Lu Cheng with interest. "How do you think he will fight?" Lu Cheng pondered for a moment and said, "Psychic supernatural abilities are troublesome. If I were him, I would definitely use a move like thunder from a clear sky, cloudless thunder blade, at the start of the match. Shock followed by damage and paralysis." Heh, if I hadn't expected it, Li Shaokong wouldn't have been able to effectively avoid it. Then, without giving him a chance to use his psychic supernatural ability, I would have attacked and completely suppressed him. With Peng Liyun's strength, I would have finished the match in less than 10 seconds. That is indeed the best way to fight. And Xiaoyang nodded in agreement. Then, as if recalling the past, he shook his head and laughed bitterly. But that wouldn't be Peng Liyun. He would definitely want to see the wonders of a combination of psychic supernatural ability and Southern Zheng's assassin-style martial arts. Hearing this, Lu Qing suddenly remembered his first official fight with Peng Liyun. He sighed empathetically and said, "Yes, that is what Peng Liyun would do." As he spoke, he turned to look at Xiaoyang. Both of them laughed in unison. They were both people who had been tortured by the big devil. "That can't be." Renli heard their discussion and rebutted with uncertainty. "My impression of Peng Liyun had always been that he would give it his all." Lu Qing and Xiaoyang looked at each other again and replied in unison, "You don't understand. Peng Liyun was not an evenly matched opponent. Although he seemed to be going all out, he obviously left some leeway in the choice of moves and changes of rhythm to fully mobilize the enemy, allowing him to play to his heart's content and satisfy his martial arts fanatic mentality." At this moment, Peng Liyun and Li Shaokong stepped into the arena and stood opposite each other. The referee waited for a while, then raised his right hand. "Begin." As his voice echoed, Peng Liyun's waist sank and swung, and he floated out in the obvious shaking of the arena. In an instant, the distance between the two sides was shortened. Flash strike. As expected. Lu Qing and Xiaoyang looked at each other, sighing and amused at the same time. As expected, Peng Liyun did not use a move like thunder from a clear sky, cloudless thunder blade, at the beginning of the match. Boldness comes from skill. Compared to before the metamorphosis, the biggest difference between Peng Liyun now was that when the dance stage erupted, every move of his was imbued with the heavenly punishment force. Between his fists and feet, purple lightning curled up and sizzled, like a cluster of dragons. Even if Li Shaokong tried his best to counter, it was as if he was caught in waves of paralysis, each higher than the last, and it was very difficult for him to defend. During this process, he kept looking for openings to influence his opponent with his mental supernatural ability in an attempt to change the situation. However, every time he created an opportunity and saw hope, Peng Liyun would timely neutralize it before it succeeded. Time ticked by. Li Shaokong fully demonstrated his strengths and utilized his mental supernatural ability to the fullest. He felt that if it were any other situation or opponent, he would be able to make his opponent kneel down and admit defeat. However, the Chinese martial artist before him seemed to be at ease. His performance was unfathomable, as though no matter how hard he tried, he could neutralize it with ease. The more Li Shaokong fought, the more desperate he felt. He began to take risks, trying to force his opponent to his limits. However, the risks failed quickly, and the plan was quickly ruined. The referee announced the results of the match. Peng Liyun wins. Very strong. At the Japanese representative's side, Muko Yamashita, who was focused on the center arena, suddenly heard a female voice exclaim. He turned his head and saw Kori Karasawa, who had a solemn expression on her face. After that, Renli easily defeated her opponent, while An Chaoyang defeated his opponent with a clear advantage. The second round of the double elimination tournament was coming to an end. After tonight's matches, a total of 13 contestants had accumulated 2 losses and were eliminated. There were 23 contestants left vying for the final 16 spots. Only the top 16 contestants would get the prize money. The next morning, Lu Qing woke up on time. After a short chat with Yan Jika, he eagerly began the day's training. He wanted to grasp the essence and charm of the Emperor Yan diagram as soon as possible and upgrade his Zhurong force in the shortest time possible. Holding the diagram, he immersed his mind and carefully comprehended it. However, the heavy suction and explosive flames interfered with his mind, causing his senses to be intermittent. He couldn't grasp the occasional flash of inspiration. Compared to the past few days, his understanding of the Emperor Yan diagram had improved a lot, but he was still lacking a little. Sensing the increasing impatience in his heart, Lu Qing retracted his mind and vision. He exhaled and visualized the ice mirror to calm his emotions. After another round of punching, he waited until his mind and body were calm before he stopped. He thought seriously for a while and decided to try to comprehend by analogy. This time, he didn't look at the Emperor Yan diagram. Instead, he adjusted the state of his muscles, fascia, and organs according to the prairie fire diagram. Then, he visualized the fire god Zhurong, who had the head of a beast and the body of a human standing on a red dragon. This allowed him to control the surging flames in his body. Since the Zhurong force could be upgraded to the Emperor Yan force, he should be able to gain some insight from this aspect as a guide. Based on his understanding of the Emperor Yan diagram, Lu Qing carefully controlled the Zhurong force and merged them together strand by strand. He pinched them together tightly in order to achieve maximum changes. After an unknown period of time, when the 2 streams of Zhurong power, which had become much denser than before, were slowly compressed by Ji Hao and squeezed into a ball, a strong suction force suddenly burst out from the core of the 2 streams of Zhurong power, which made the outer layer of the 2 streams of Zhurong power quickly condense inwards. Lu Qing's body trembled. The fire god Zhurong form in his mind almost collapsed. He controlled it with great difficulty and hurriedly released the mutated fire force. Boom! Flames rose in front of him. Smoke expanded and filled the air, scaring a few pedestrians in the distance into covering their heads and scurrying away, thinking that they were being attacked by terrorists. Seems like I'm getting some insight. Lu Qing couldn't hide his joy at the sight. A few minutes later, he heard the sirens of police cars and saw a squad of military police rushing in front of him. For a moment, he was dumbfounded. After negotiating with the leader, Zhong Ningtao, and a call from the embassy, the military police gave Lu Qing a few reminders before finally retreating from the scene. Ahem. Be careful when you practice martial arts. After all, you're overseas. You have to be mindful of the consequences, Zhong Ningtao reminded him, both physically and mentally exhausted. He thought that Renli was the only troublesome one. He didn't expect that the most reliable and stable Lu Qing would also almost cause trouble. None of them are easy to deal with. Under the gazes of Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Xiaoyang, who couldn't help but laugh, Lu Qing gave them a promise. He turned around and found a more secluded place. Using the little insight he had from before, he started to observe and understand the Emperor Yen diagram again. The dust accumulated and swirled into a vortex. When it reached a limit, it suddenly collapsed, squeezing out heat from the heaviness, igniting itself and spewing out flames that illuminated the darkness. Even with a guide, Lu Qing still experienced failure after failure before he barely grasped the subtle charm. The flames were controlled and turned into a crown and robe. In his mind, a solemn and dignified Emperor Yen statue was faintly formed. However, just as it was about to become clear, it suddenly collapsed. Lu Qing panted heavily. He wasn't annoyed but happy. Although he had failed just now, it meant that he really did have some insight. He had pushed open the door and found the right path. Now, it was just a matter of patience. This was due to the catalysis of the change in method and also the accumulation of gains over time. Phew! He almost shouted out loud. He quickly took out his phone and reported the good news to his wife. I have some idea of the Emperor Yen force. I was almost arrested by the Xinjiang police because of this. Pfft, is it because you were too happy and shouted too loudly that you scared the little kids? Yen Jika happened to be in between classes. She sent a kissing from afar emoji in surprise and delight. Brother Cheng, you're the best. Are you praising me for making a breakthrough in the Emperor Yen force or for scaring the little kids? Lu Qing snickered happily. Understand the spirit of your coach. Yen Jika's dimples appeared at the corner of her mouth. She asked about the details, happy that Lu Qing had comprehended the Emperor Yen diagram and happy that he had accidentally attracted the police. For the rest of the day, Lu Qing didn't practice with Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Xiaoyang. Using the excuse that he was about to make a breakthrough, he neglected sleep and forgot to eat to deeply understand the Emperor Yen diagram. When he was tired and resting, he chatted with Ku to ease his mood. At 3 in the afternoon, he sat cross-legged and finally outlined a solemn, dignified, and scorching Emperor Yen statue in his mind. The flow of fire in his body surged, condensed and gradually stabilized. Lu Qing opened his eyes and smiled tiredly. He picked up his phone and sent a message to Yen Jika. I did it. He had mastered the Emperor Yen diagram. The next step would be the sublimation process. It wouldn't take long. Only then did he feel sleepy. He hurriedly added to the girl, Ku, I'll send you a message. If I don't hear from you when you wake up, call me and wake me up. He felt that with his current condition, he might not be able to wake up on time. If he missed the competition because he overslept and was disqualified, that would be a huge mistake. It was currently midnight in America. After sending the message, Lu Qing fell asleep immediately. His sleep was filled with dreams. It was dark and groggy. Suddenly, he heard knocking on the door. He struggled out of his drowsiness and woke up. He picked up his phone and saw that it wasn't even 6:00. Ku obviously hadn't woken up yet. Shaking his head, he walked to the door in his wrinkled clothes and opened it. Outside, Peng Liyun had one hand in his pocket. He didn't seem to be in a hurry. He smiled and said, the leader asked me to call you. We'll be gathering in 10 minutes. Okay. Lu Qing was still in a daze after waking up. Peng Liyun smiled and said, you're about to transform, aren't you? Yeah, you can try breaking through underwater. The results are pretty good. Thank you. Lu Qing smiled. He wouldn't tell him that his master had already warned him. After sending Peng Liyun off, he walked into the bathroom. He splashed his face with cold water and combed his hair. He felt his tiredness disappear completely and he felt refreshed. With a smile on his face, Lu Qing took out his phone and sent a message to Yen Jika. I'm awake. I feel like I'm full of energy. After clicking send, he looked at himself in the mirror in high spirits and muttered silently, the third round of the competition, here I come. Chapter 462. After changing his clothes, Lu Qing was about to go out when he heard a special notification from his phone. He picked it up and saw a message from Yenjika. Yenjika sent an emoji of a monkey rubbing its eyes in pajamas. I set the alarm at this time, but you woke up by yourself. You woke up. Lu Qing broke into laughter and replied honestly, the leader asked Peng Liyun to knock on the door and wake me up. Hey, Ku, why did you set the alarm now? Shouldn't you be sleeping soundly when I sent the message? I woke up in the middle of the night and looked at my phone in a daze. I also set the alarm. Yenjika sent an emoji of a monkey brushing its teeth. Come, let's interview you. Lu Qing, what do you want to say about finally visualizing the statue of Emperor Yen? Are you excited? Excited? What's your biggest feeling? Passing the microphone. Lu Qing examined himself and rubbed his discontented tummy. Laughing to tears expression, he said, my biggest feeling is hunger, I'm not joking. I didn't even eat breakfast or lunch. Pfft. Yenjika laughed out loud and rolled on the bed. She sent an emoji of disdain, it's all your fault. I said I'd go back to sleep and make up for an hour of sleep. Now I'm completely awake from laughing. Without waiting for Lu Qing to reply, she sent another emoji of a pitiful face, I can only wake up early to train. Huh, that's good. Martial arts can't be neglected. The body is the capital of revolution. Lu Qing said casually. What he wanted to say was that only when the body was healthy, the spirit would be full, and it would be more conducive to learning. After a dozen seconds, Yenjika sent an emoji of knocking on the head. You're so dirty. Dirty? Lu Qing was stunned for a moment. He didn't understand what Yenjika was thinking. After thinking for a while, he understood and sent an emoji of a snicker. Ku, what are you thinking? What I mean is that the body is the capital of learning. Well, you're not wrong to understand it that way. Hee hee. Hee hee, your head. You're the one who led me astray. Yes, you must have deliberately misled me. Yenjika typed on the keyboard with a red face. Humph, tell me, what do you want to eat now? I'll help you find the pictures right away. I don't hold grudges overnight. I want to eat our Ke San Xian. Lu Qing changed his mind and his mood softened. Yenjika pursed her lips and looked away. She looked to the side and forgot what she had been thinking before. She said, then bring a cookbook when you come over in September. We can cook something together. Yes, yes. I promise to complete the task assigned by Coach Yen. Lu Qing replied. They chatted for a while. After Yenjika complimented him generously, Lu Qing took his belongings and left the room. He arrived at the lobby on time to meet with his teammates. Yenjika, who was in America, put down her phone and got out of bed quickly. She pushed open the door and headed for the bathroom to wash up. She had just turned on the light when she suddenly sensed something. Turning her head, she found her mother, Ji Mingyu, standing at the door of her room with her arms crossed, quietly looking at her. Mom, why are you up so early? Yenjika blurted out. Ji Mingyu chuckled, her posture unchanged. I was woken up by your alarm clock. Why did you wake up an hour earlier today? What did that brat Lu Qing do this time? Why did he have to make you wake up early? Yenjika's eyes suddenly lit up and sparkled. She raised her chin and said honestly, yes. Cheng has mastered Emperor Yen force. It's going to transform soon. In the lobby, Lu Qing and Xiaoyang, who arrived first, saw Peng Liyun walking in leisurely and Renli under the escort of the team leader. Zhong Mingtao was about to say something when he heard a loud rumbling sound. It sounded like someone's stomach was wriggling violently in protest. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Everyone present had good hearing. Renli, Peng Liyun and Xiaoyang immediately looked at Lu Qing. Before Lu Qing could open his mouth and control himself, his stomach started growling again. I'm a little hungry, he said shamelessly with a red face. Oh no, I've made a fool of myself in front of the four of them. I can't build a reliable image anymore. Huh, let's go then. I found a good Chinese restaurant. Zhong Ningtao said with a smile. Peng Liyun looked at Lu Cheng and smiled at En Chaoyang. I thought of a song. Me too. En Chaoyang downloaded the song quickly and played it through his headphones. So hungry, so hungry, so hungry, I'm really hungry. Amidst the music, he looked at Lu Cheng with a smile and asked, do you like it? Not at all. Lu Cheng put on a forced smile and raised his right hand. He introduced solemnly, look at my fist, it's already clenched. En Chaoyang's personality was more feminine. Who knew when he would secretly trick someone? He was the most two-faced. Haha. Everyone burst into laughter. During this period of time, everyone had become more and more familiar with each other. During dinner, they restrained themselves and waited until Lu Cheng was half full before letting loose. Although the food in the Chinese restaurant wasn't delicious, they still ate to their heart's content since they hadn't eaten Chinese food for many days. However, they were worried about the competition at night, so they had to make sure their bodies were in top condition. At 7:10 p.m., Lu Cheng and the rest arrived at the Xinxiang Stadium. Along the way, they witnessed a street fight and watched with interest for 5 minutes. At this time, the audience had already gathered. The third round of drawing lot ceremony would begin in less than 20 minutes. Now that there were only 23 contestants left, the probability of drawing a strong opponent was obviously higher. Of course, there would be some lucky ones who would get a bye and watch the fights with a smile. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling was passionately pasting the wishing post. As long as Lu Cheng doesn't draw an inhuman in this round, I'll wake up on time from now until school reopens. She copied the content and prayed silently with Brahman, all good names are taken by dogs, and the rest. If Lu Cheng lost another round, he would be eliminated. Stupid Eternal Nightfall, why wake up on time and not early? Asked Unparalleled Dragon King, after observing for a while. Yan Shaoling sent a shocked emoji and said, wake up on time means that you have to wake up at 12 noon. 12 noon? Do you still need to make a wish? God will strike you to death. No, you're too short and won't be an obvious target, replied Unparalleled Dragon King, with a shocked emoji. This is summer vacation, do you understand? Summer vacation. Uncle, you can't understand the state of a student during summer vacation. Although I set a rule for myself to wake up at noon, I've been sleeping when the sun rises and waking up at 4 or 5 p.m. Replied Yan Shaoling. Damn, so decadent. Replied Unparalleled Dragon King with a sweaty emoji. Yan Shaoling replied with a dejected emoji. It's very decadent, but it's really King satisfying. Little Nightfall, you're becoming more and more like an old hooligan, replied Brahman. She used to be such a soft and cute girl. Ever since she started this forum, she had become an old hand in just a year's time. Lu Cheng chatted with his mother, Qi Fangyin, for a while. After reporting the day's events, he saw Yan Zhika send him a link. Laughing so hard, Shaoling is so funny. Huh? Lu Cheng clicked on the link and entered his own forum. Seeing everyone's wishes, he was touched. At the same time, he couldn't help but laugh at Yan Shaoling's waking up on time. Back in the days, I wasn't even this decadent during the summer vacation after college entrance examinations. At most, I would sleep at 3 p.m. and wake up at 12 p.m. Occasionally, I would stay up all night. He exited the post and switched back to the chat interface. He said to Yan Zhika with a smirk emoji, "Ku, it's almost time to draw lots. Aren't you going to make a wish and pray?" Yan Zhika sent an emoji of a little monster licking ice cream and said, "I'm not worried at all. With my luck shining on you, you definitely won't be able to draw an inhuman. Don't worry," patting on the shoulder earnestly. "Huh, you've learned a little of their chat style?" replied Lu Cheng with a chuckle. He turned to look at the guests walking up the ring. After eliminating Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Chao Yang and myself, as well as Vagar and Sakata, something that I've fought before, there are still 17 choices left. If we don't count the walkover, the probability of getting an inhuman is 4 out of 17, less than a quarter. The probability of getting a seed is 7 out of 17, more than a third, almost half. As he would be eliminated if he lost one more round, he couldn't stay calm. Not long after, he heard his name and couldn't help but straighten his back. After waiting for a few seconds, the guest drew his opponent. Xingxiang, Bacco. Bacco? Not a seeded player. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. This thought came to his mind. However, after thinking carefully about this name, he realized that it wasn't an easy opponent to deal with. Bacco was one of the representatives of Xingxiang's martial arts. He also knew sorcery similar to the black magic voodoo, and his battle strength was close to the inhuman level. Based on his standards, he could have been the 7th or 8th seeded player. However, due to the unspoken rule of only having 2 seeded players in each of the 4 countries, due to Waku and Gusai, 6th seeded player, he was unfortunately not selected. He had to fight his way through to enter this round. After the start of this round, his luck wasn't too good. He drew the first seeded player, Kori Karasawa, in the first round and swallowed the bitter taste of defeat. However, he won the second round easily and kept his spot. Now, he was in the same situation as Lu Qing. There was no room for retreat. Luckily, as long as it wasn't an inhuman. Lu Qing nodded without any arrogance or fear. He sent the situation to Yan Zhika and shared the information in the live stream thread as a little war reporter. At the Xingxiang representative's seat, Bacco, with both his hands and wrists wrapped in blood-red bandages, nodded with confidence. Just as Lu Qing lowered his head to look at his phone, and Chaoyang was also drawn. His opponent was quickly confirmed. Nanjing, Banam. 4th seeded Banam. Chapter 463. This luck. And Chaoyang was stunned at first when he heard the result of the draw. Then he shook his head and laughed at himself. He was relatively relaxed and didn't feel much pressure. Instead, he was eager to try. To him, he hadn't lost a single match yet. Even if he lost this match, he wouldn't be eliminated. It would be a great experience to have an intense battle with an inhuman mighty one with different martial arts styles. Just look at Lu Qing from yesterday. After fighting with Vagar, his actual combat skills seemed to have reached a new level, solidifying the weak foundation caused by his rapid advancement. Seeing that and Chaoyang didn't care much about the bad draw, Lu Qing immediately joked, "I think this is retribution for provoking me with the song of eating." Under Chaoyang's amused and angry expression, he explained seriously, "As you know, I have the supernatural ability to reflect curses and bad luck. This is just the most basic application of it. Those who hurt me, provoke me, or make fun of me will suffer retribution." At this point, he drew a cross in the wrong order on his chest and said solemnly, "Believe in Lu Qing and you will live forever." And Chaoyang was stunned for a few seconds. He couldn't help but laugh. "If you didn't say that last sentence, would have believed you." As he spoke, he couldn't continue and laughed with Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and Zhong Mingtao. "You believed me just like that?" Using Little Ming's catchphrase, "With your intelligence, if you were a girl, I could have tricked you into bed twice." Lu Qing secretly mocked him and laughed with everyone else. "You seem to be in a good mood." And Chaoyang calmed down and fixed his half-length artistic hair. He glanced at Lu Qing and said, "Yeah," Lu Qing replied with a smile, feeling good both physically and mentally. He had succeeded in his training and was about to transform. His opponent wasn't a real inhuman mighty one. What was there to be unsatisfied about? At this moment, Yan Zhika replied to his previous message. Hand under chin, laughing expression, "See. I told you that with my luck shining on you, you wouldn't be able to get an inhuman. Now I'm completely at ease. I won't cheer you on later. I'll lend you my luck." Completely at ease? Completely? Cuckoo, you seem to have exposed something. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. His mood was getting better. At this moment, Peng Lian was selected. His opponent was a Japanese samurai, neither Kori Karasawa nor Muko Yamashita. Behind him, there were only two groups left. After confirming, there was a lucky girl who got a bye, student Renli. Is it because girls with bad sense of direction tend to have better luck? Lu Qing whispered into An Chaoyang's ear. It's possible. If you're unlucky, you'll really get lost, and Chaoyang replied tactfully. The two of them turned their heads and saw Renli puffing out her cheeks, looking very dissatisfied. What is she unhappy about? And Chaoyang asked in a low voice. Lu Qing thought for a moment and said, maybe he's disappointed that there wasn't a fight. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and sympathized with the pitiful, vacant lot. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, Eternal Nightfall Yan Shaoling tagged Unparalleled Dragon King. Is this Bako powerful? What level? How much worse is he compared to our Lu Cheng? Close to the inhuman stage. Unparalleled Dragon King replied honestly, but most of his strength is in Nanyang sorcery. The most powerful curse type is coincidentally countered by Lu Cheng. It's fine if he doesn't use it, but if he does, he'll just have to wait for a comedy. So, in conclusion, he's slightly weaker than Lu Cheng. Based on Lu Cheng's outstanding performance on the spot, Bako doesn't have a high chance of winning. Our wishes are still very effective. Dancing in circles expression, Yan Shaoling said. Okamoto's fan appeared and said, then you'll have to start waking up on time. Yan Shaoling immediately went down on her knees and shivered. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on you. Patting shoulder expression, replied Brahman. When the duel was about to start, at the Xinjiang representative seat, the sallow skinny Theravada ascetic monk Waku walked up to Bako and said with perfect articulation, you have to be careful of his supernatural ability to reflect curses. Bako adjusted the blood-red bandages on his hands and replied with a hoarse voice, I've seen his information before. As a famous boxer in Xinjiang, he looked skinny. In fact, every muscle on his body seemed to be made of copper and iron, containing explosive strength. His eyebrows were short and thick, and the edges were folded. He looked extremely fierce. After answering the reminder and adjusting the bandages, Bako stood up slowly, extended his hands and spread them in front of Waku. He said confidently, my sorcery isn't limited to curses. As he spoke, there seemed to be many tiny life forms under his blood-red bandages. They were densely packed and wriggling, making one's heart palpitate. Bam! Cracking his knuckles, Bako clenched his fists tightly. He took a step forward, past Waku, and walked towards the arena. Lu Cheng was already waiting at the edge of the arena. When other people's duels ended, he couldn't wait to enter the arena and stand at his position. His mood was as good as before. For the first time, he didn't unleash his aura and visualize the army formula to exert pressure on Bako, who was walking towards him slowly. He was rather relaxed and at ease. Yes, once the Emperor Yen's statue was formed, it meant that the Zhurong force would be upgraded very soon. He would officially cross the threshold and begin to transform, becoming an inhuman. This was extremely symbolic. It was similar to achieving the Dan stage through force concentration. It meant that he could truly be called a mighty one and belong to the upper echelons of the martial arts world. At this stage, even if he lost the competition and didn't get the prize money, Wu Qinggui would increase his endorsement fees according to the contract when he returned to China. Furthermore, the reward for winning the national championship would also be settled together. This was the worst-case scenario. However, in reality, Bako wasn't an inhuman. He had a high chance of winning. He would still value him, but he wouldn't feel too much pressure and his mood wouldn't be affected. Moreover, the flight to America had been successfully booked. Ku had specially woken up early today to wake him up. His mother had said that the new house they bought had increased by 50,000 yuan in just a few months. His relationship with his teammates was getting better. Everything in the world seemed so perfect. Lu Qing thought happily. He didn't even waste the waiting time and took the time to visualize. In his mind, he outlined the heavy, majestic, scorching and terrifying Emperor Yen's statue. With this, he guided the flame force in his body to slowly condense and transform. This was the process of upgrading Zhurong force to Emperor Yen force. Actually, even without this upgrade, he, who had grasped the Emperor Yen diagram, could use the Emperor Yen force through a series of steps and visualizations. However, as he had to compress it at the last minute and visualize it for a few seconds, it was almost useless in actual combat. When the flame force corresponded to the upgrade, he could save those few seconds and allow the Emperor Yen force to be used in actual combat. If his root pulp mutated and his body transformed, he wouldn't even need a series of steps. He could just visualize the Emperor force. Wisps of flames fused and streaks of red turned white. Lu Qing enjoyed the changes in his body and gradually accumulated a streak of Emperor Yen force. With this as the core, he triggered others and created more. At this moment, Bako walked up to the arena. He saw the young man standing casually in front of him and realized that he was smiling. He didn't show any fighting spirit and was relaxed both physically and mentally. Too arrogant, too careless. Bako thought as the fighting spirit in his eyes burned brighter. At this moment, Lu Qing miraculously felt no pressure. He felt that he had the lively mind described in Xianxia novels. As a result, his flame force became lively. He didn't care about his opponent's performance. He smiled at Bako and bowed. The referee raised his right hand and shouted in a deep and loud voice, "Begin." Experiencing the miraculous feeling, Lu Qing, who was relaxed physically and mentally, took a step forward with his left leg. His mind naturally changed his visualization and the attainment formula appeared. In the deep ancient sound, he covered more than 10 meters with a single stride. With a swoosh, he was right in front of Bako. Swinging his right arm, his fist mixed with the forward momentum of his body and punched out with a bang. It was accompanied by the violent flame force that was caused by the disappearance of the Emperor Yen statue midway. Bako was shocked. Seeing that he couldn't dodge in time, he quickly lowered his center of gravity and put his hands in front of him to block. Lu Cheng's fist was like lightning. It was dyed with a layer of blazing white as it hit his hand. Boom! In the midst of the explosion, waves of fire rolled and billowed. Strong winds overflowed in all directions. Bakashin could not help but take a step back. To his astonishment, he saw that the blood-colored bandage on his hand was either charred black or burning. Tiny things fell off and turned into dust along with the wind. This. Bako's pupils contracted. When did Lu Cheng's flame force become so powerful? P.S. Only one more chapter to go. Continue tomorrow. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.